Okay, welcome everybody to the February 18th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. What? Could you do the chief first? She has to leave.
I've got a West Ham meeting.
She's always something
Not before
special.
the pledge of allegiance.
No,
Does
no.
everybody want to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and following that, there'll be a moment of silence. I'll let Mike do all the doings tonight.
Pledge allegiance.
I'll let Mike do all the doings tonight.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Folks, if we would remain standing a moment of silence to respect our first responders, our military, and those who serve us and keep us safe, secure each and every day, and particularly to those who have given the ultimate, the price in their service to our country. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. We have a sort of a large crowd tonight. Sometimes we have a really big crowd, but most of the time we have nobody. We will live stream tonight, except for
We have Eric, and he is definitely a somebody.
he is a somebody. He's in charge, or will be shortly, of our whole meeting tonight. Welcome to those that are on the streaming. We will be streaming the whole program tonight.
Microphone, please.
Microphone.
Go there. With that, you know what? You do my microphone, wait up, you want? I'm too turn.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
Clicker in your order.
Right now. We have a technical issue here, folks. Here's one.
Well, I guess the important people is working, and it looks like only one at the moment is working. Now, how about that?
I will try to talk loud. It's very much fun to have this technical issue before we even get started. I would like to say that the meeting is being live streamed, and we have a pleading from our ordinance that the chief give her report tonight so she can go someplace else and make another report. So, Chief, while we're fooling around with this up here, why don't you give your report? For those that don't know Chief Bernard, she's the chief of our police department, and as long as she is captive tonight, if you have any questions about how the police department functions or whatever, please feel free to ask the chief to explain.
Good evening, everyone. Just a few things I'd like to highlight. Number one, as I indicated at the last meeting, our department is going to endeavor to do charitable events all year round. So please visit our Facebook page and also Crime Watch so that you know what we're currently working on. We're currently collecting items for small children and infants, such as diapers, baby bottles, clothing, etc. It's going to go to the domestic violence shelters and also to a treatment facility that allows women to bring their babies with them when they go into rehabilitation. So we invite you to join us. Your generosity has been overwhelming in all the other events that we've done, and we would like to make sure that in Chester County that nobody goes without. The other thing is we invite you to visit our Facebook and our website, because not only is there information about crimes and trends that are occurring, but also there's safety tips. Like, for example, the purple paint law. A lot of people are not aware of that it's no longer necessary to put up no trespassing signs, that if you follow the law, you can use purple paint to do the same thing. So we invite you to visit our website and learn more about that. And lastly, an event that happened just this evening. It happened in Westtown Township, but I think it's worth sharing in East Goshen. An individual stepped out of the shower and was confronted by an individual who had walked through an open door. There was a physical confrontation. She was slightly injured, but she's going to be okay. We expect to have a composite. She's sitting with a composite artist right now trying to get us a composite so we can put it out on our website. But just a reminder that even when you are home, it's best, particularly if you're a woman, to lock your doors. So,
Chief, where are you taking the contributions for the shelter?
You can come to our department, or if you want to, if you happen to be in this building, just call for an officer. They'll pick it up and transport it back. Yeah, our lobby has a receptacle for it, and the response has been overwhelming.
And if you wanna ever have a receptacle here, just, tell us to set something up.
I appreciate that. The one thing that we are working on, and I've been in touch with both Rick and also Mark Miller, we've gotten funding from a company that's gonna provide a medical collection receptacle in the lobby of this building, which the police department will make sure is emptied and disposed of accordingly. So we're always looking for initiatives to make the lives better for the people we serve.
Chief, is in my imagination, are we seeing an increase in trading checks and forgeries in the department?
I'm going to say that overall frauds and scams are going through the roof in all townships at a rate we've never seen before. But quite honestly, there is no limit to the amount or the success of these scams, and that's why they keep getting more and more popular. But I mean, with regard to, okay, I'll do a quick survey of the audience. How many people here have not had their credit card, check card, or something else compromised in the last 3 years? Who has not had it compromised? I'm shocked. Mine happens at least once a year, once every 3 years, and I'm very
You
cautious.
make too much money.
Yeah, that must be it. And I'm very cautious what I do. I don't do a lot of shopping on the internet. So, I mean, it's shocking that basically when I do that survey, it's usually about at least 50 to 60% of the people in the last 3 years have had, like, somebody try to open credit in their name, has had a problem with their information being compromised. And the scary thing is they don't need to have your credit card. Every time that I've been the victim, my credit card has been in my purse. So,
I think one of the things, Chief, we often talk about what you can do or should do, what people should do. One of the things for sure is that you should check your credit through one of the 3 credit agencies, if not all of them. And you can do it once a year, you can spread it out, at least you would know if you got a problem before you have to you use your credit you want to buy a car, whatever it is. So I would encourage you to do that. It's not complicated to do. So I would suggest that you do that.
and you can get your credit score free once a year.
Correct. Where? You want to let the people know when they should contact you?
Pretty much anytime you have a concern that you might be the victim of a fraud or a scam, please feel free to contact us. But I mean, it's essential that you contact us if you're out any money or if it compromises your credit rating or anything like that. But like, for example, the IRS scam where somebody calls and says, "Hi, I've got an arrest warrant for you." You know it's a scam by now. You don't need to report something like that because pretty much they call my police cell phone at least once a month to tell me that there's an arrest warrant for me. I'm so disappointed. I try to follow the law.
Does anybody have any questions for the chief? I don't know where you're going, but I hope you get there speedily.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chief.
But not.
Put the flashers on.
Westtown Township is holding their meeting tonight, and there's somebody who specifically requested the opportunity to address the board about the police department, so I don't want to miss that.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with it.
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Thanks,
Chief.
Chief.
I want to do the chairman's before we get too far into this meeting. It's only a couple of things. We did meet in an executive session tonight to talk about personnel matter. The township does have the Boot Road geographical study is available for review at the township's website if you're interested in looking at that. The zoning hearing board has met, I think it was last week. They had decided that the first hearing since since everything back in order again will be April 23rd for those that are interested in it. The Malvern Institute, if people are wondering why this is coming and going, it's a non-conforming use, non-conforming everything up there. And there's the doctrine of natural expansion that comes into play. And there was an appeal of the decision that was made by our zoning hearing board. And that appeal went through, which means that they kind of have to do what the judge said when he denied the original application. So April 23rd is the first time that they would do that. This has been going on for a better part, I guess, of 3 years. So it's been fairly long, and it'll make a book for somebody, I guess, someday. The public agenda for items that are not on the agenda will be on at the end of this meeting, because we gotta get some of this stuff done tonight. There is the potential for some things to require some amount of discussion. We're gonna try to keep it under control, because there's some things we're not, hey, wait a minute, I see people that I saw last night, that's kind of amazing. The only thing is that I would say that we do have with us one of our former supervisors present the monthly report for each of the agencies that supply service for us or to our residents, and to discuss anything where he's been on call with respect to a fire. So let me introduce Barbara Materio to close out this session. I think that's what you said. You missed it. That's what you said.
Good evening, board. Good evening, residents. Let's start with good fellowship. What I'm going to give you is the yearly report, which is all they gave us for last year, 2019. Good fellowship for Goshen only had 652 calls. As you know, they take care of the from Wiggins over going eastward part of our fire district. Goshen takes care of the rest. Malvern takes care of a little bit of the north. So for 2019, they had 652 calls, 10% of their, 10.85% of their balance. Malvern Fire Company for January had 25 ALS, which is Advanced Life Support, with 16 transports, 5 BLS with 4 transports, and 1 fire, which happened to be an assist to Goshen. Goshen Fire Company for January, we had 25 fires, 177 ambulance calls. Again, you'll see the determination of where they are going or where they have been. And our active fire police had 10 calls. I have 2 reports, but only one made the agenda as far as active fires. But we had a Bellingham, Longwood building. We came in as a structure fire. Excuse me, which is an automatic response from numerous companies, 7 to be exact, that are dispatched. Thank God it ended up being an air handler in a 3rd floor unit that shorted out and created a lot of smoke. So that was taken care of in a fairly quick amount of time. Our assistant fire marshal was on that. I was not available. And I had a follow-up to a problem that has been happening at Bellingham. You have to excuse my throat. There are a number of standpipes for sprinkler systems. They're the big Stewart's fittings that when we come in, one of the jobs of one of the engines is to supplement the sprinkler system in case of a fire. Well, they have them and they are legal, but they are not properly identified. So if you're coming in with either with panic and or with possible entrapment, anything that can happen during a fire, there is a 9 out of 10 chance that even I would miss them, and I know where they are. So you're going to have to back up and try to find it. It's a matter of $150 in signs to adequately signage those areas. I know Code's department is working on it. I did a follow-up because I think it's taking too long. And all we need is something to happen. I'd prefer it not happen on my watch. That's all I have tonight. There was another fire, but that'll probably be on the next agenda, and that's on Westchester Pike. Any questions? If not, I'm out of your hair.
Thanks, Carmen.
Nice seeing you all.
You look great.
You look pripper and prim.
Carmen, I really like good fellowship, and we're had a lot of cool data in it.
They really get into the mud, into the weeds. You can spend hours digesting what they do. Very good job.
Yeah, it's great.
Hey, Carmen, before you leave, can you explain for the people the difference between the 2 types of life support systems? The
ALS.
BLS.
So that people know what you're talking about, because there may be some confusion about that.
ALS is very basically advanced, advanced life support medics, paramedics. They're fully trained. They can do under doctor's supervision through the hospital, through the radio, anything basically other than surgery for emergency purposes until they get to the facility. Whether the person is transported or not is their decision. You can refuse to be shipped, to be transported. If you're unconscious or if it's a bad enough case, we override that and we take you pretty much unless a family member objects. BLS would be our normal ambulance. We have EMTs, they're staffed with drivers, they're staffed with first aiders. They are qualified. They're qualified to do basic life support. Everybody's trained in CPR. Everybody's trained in blood pathogens. That was our drill last night. David was at it. It's a yearly requirement that we do a blood pathogen refresher. Our basic life support would be the same thing, but it would be an assist if you have a fall. It would be public service if kids get their heads stuck in railings. That normally happens, and we dispatch a rescue truck with it. A lot of these cases, we will run an engine in case they need additional manpower. But the basic and advanced is paramedics versus first aid and or emergency medical technicians. So even though you're getting an ambulance, you're getting qualified people, very qualified, to a certain level.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
The reason I had Carmen do that is so that people realize that everybody in town is covered. But if you have a fire, is one thing. If you have a call, an emergency, say a heart attack, it's entirely different. So the fact that we have some fire companies do some of the area and other fire companies do other areas, and it's the same way with emergency services. So we have everything covered. I just want you to know that. But it's really important to understand whether somebody has a basic problem or a serious problem. And our people are equipped to handle both.
If the county can't determine what it is by the call-in, you get everything. You get advanced basic fire trucks, ladder trucks, fire marshal, chairman of the board, fellow supervisors. Questions?
Can you get lights to come on here so we can talk with the speakers? No,
I'm the only one that could work this
No,
mic.
they're not working.
It's not working?
Nobody, or we got.
Did you turn the switch on in the back?
I didn't touch it.
Not working. Yes, ma'am.
So I've been seeing information about a program that's called Minutes Matter out of Pittsburgh, the city of Pittsburgh, that is partnered with the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And it's to educate the public about how you respond in the first minutes of an emergency can really determine the outcome for somebody. And so what they're doing is basic education, kind of what you were saying is the information that you have to give when you're calling 911, how to render basic first aid, how to render CPR, that kind of stuff. And so I know you and I talked a little bit about reaching out to Good Fellowship to try to get something like that started here. And I did initiate a contact with them. I haven't heard back yet. But do you think that we could do something like that here in our community, or could you help assist me with something like that, with a Minutes Matter type of program here?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have anything. We don't have that particular format here. What we typically do is through the hospitals and Good Fellowship, we have different forms of training. I think I explained to you. You can sign up for basic first aid. They have infant first aid, which I advise anybody that has a new infant coming into the family to take. It includes infant CPR. I mean, if you ever pushed on a pillow, that's too hard. Infant CPR is exactly what I'm doing right here with my fingers. And if you do that, if you do anything further, you're going to cause possibly damage to the baby. That's available through trauma centers. I think Paoli offers it. Chester County, with their expansion, I can't imagine they won't be offering a slew of stuff. Good Fellowship has it. Goshen has that available for its members. David, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe they outreach to the community. Goshen does not.
Not that I know of.
We refer people to Good Fellowship. I mean, they do this like for a living. So if you have trouble getting a hold of somebody, give me a call back. Again, I forget the director's name, but I went to school with her. She punches me because I never remember her name. They'll have something available for you, but basic and advanced first aid, you have the right to take, or you can pay for it. And I would advise anybody to take basic first aid. It's, I'm going to say probably 30 to 40 hours. That sound right, David? Basic. Does that sound decent? 30 to 40 hours. I mean, mine back in the day was hundreds for EMT, but
That's accurate.
I'm sorry.
That's accurate.
Yeah, and then you have there's CPR. That's also offered by, can't remember the name. CPR. Who does CPR?
Rochester County Dog School does it.
All right, there you go. There's a lot of night schools that do it. I don't know what to tell you about your program. I'm not aware of it. It might be inner city. Philadelphia may have it, but I don't think it's anything out here. Good Fellowship would be your best bet. They will set up with the community. If you want to get your residents involved, there would be a fee probably, but you would take whatever course you want with them. Infant CPR, basic CPR, advanced life support, anything you want. Bloodborne pathogens, which is something that you should have an awareness of.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of an awareness program. I mean, I remember when I took a CPR class at my employer, one of the first things that was taught to us, and I found very helpful, was the trainer said, first of all, I think you all need to know just basically that like when you call 911, the difference between calling from a cell phone and a landline, how your calls get routed. The other thing she talked about was just having a house number visible from the street. And that actually made me put numbers on my mailbox, which I didn't have before. And she said that is a matter of minutes between an ambulance being able to find your house and going past it. And so it's just basic community awareness, things like that I would like to see people being taught about.
I can check
If you
with
don't have your numbers on your mailbox, you're in violation of township code. You will get a letter. Our building inspectors are constantly driving around the neighborhoods. If they see a mailbox with that numbers on it, there will be a letter in the mailbox the next day. So that's
I mean,
that's
I lived
something
here
that
for
the
years
building
without
codes-
numbers on my mailbox. And nobody ever sent me a letter. I mean, it's well fixed now.
I will check with our training director at drill next week. I don't believe Goshen has the staff. And we certainly, if we start using our paid personnel, it gets really expensive, and I don't know if their contract would allow it. I'm really not up to speed on their contracts. I'll check with our training personnel advisors and see. If Goshen wants to partner with somebody, that would be up to them. I can get you more information, but I thought Good Fellowship would take care of you. I haven't heard back from
Yeah,
them.
I haven't heard back from them either, but even just like what I learned there was a matter of if somebody calls from a cell phone, it's gonna ping off the nearest tower versus if somebody goes into the house and calls from the landline, then they're gonna have a precise location of where.
Who has a landline nowadays, though?
I know, But
I think it's worthwhile,
things like that.
we could look into what's available and training on all the different sources, maybe promote them in our newsletter. I think public safety is a good idea.
Good thinking, Dave. That's what Dave, Rick and I were just talking
Oh,
about.
that,
We will find out, Carmen.
I'll get
what's
some
available
information
from the
together.
hospitals in this neck of the woods.
Okay,
And when we have that in its form, we will put it in the newsletter so everybody can take it out and put it on their refrigerator, whatever they want to do with it. So
Yeah.
we can do that.
Okay.
Ricky says it's a little bit of a problem because you gotta talk to a number of different people. David has brilliant ideas, but they're always a little late. I don't quite understand that. But he was very nice to share his microphone with me. Now,
That's all right, Christina was here, so she's raised
well,
our.
but Christine violated our rules though, and she should know this.
I should
For
run up
all
to
those
somebody
that are out in the audience, if you're going to say something, you must come up to the microphone, because our poor folks out in the streaming world cannot see who's talking in the absence of coming to the
I
microphone.
didn't want to steal Carmen's microphone time.
Thank you, Carmen. Appreciate it.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, I'll see you next week.
Just in case, David circled this, I know I said it, but I'll say it again. if there's anybody here for a non-agenda item that wants to talk about it, we'll do it after the other parts of the meeting are finished. We will not forget it, I will guarantee that. John has the financial report, John.
Yeah, just keep it real quick. As of through January, the general fund had a positive budget variance of $58,000. It had a deficit of $682,000. The reason there's always a deficit after January because we haven't yet received any real estate tax bills, and January earned income tax receipts are always historically very low. But the good news is we're got out to a good start ahead of budget. We did mail the real estate bills on January 30th, so we're starting to see money coming in from that. Obviously, on the expense side, we've saved a bundle with the lack of snow this year. Earned income tax, despite being a slow January, still came in over the budget. So we got off to a good start. Not much to report at this time.
Anybody have any questions for John?
John, you answered my question, then the earned income tax up 21 plus. That's relative to budget, not year to date, compared to January 19.
Don't read anything into the IT at this point.
No, but that's compared with the budget, not January 19.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the things that there are a few people that like to monitor this thing. John will usually tell you that up until about the 4th month of the year, you really have a little trouble figuring out what's going on with respect to the balance, because there's so many different variations in this from year to year. And so, but when it gets to be about April, you can start relying on this. And the further you're into the year, the more you can rely on it. So John does a wonderful job, but there's only so much you can do. The next item is the approval of the minutes and the treasurer's report. I have read carefully the minutes. I didn't find any mistakes in it or things that need to be changed. So I want to compliment John on that. And if everybody agrees with me, I would entertain a motion for approval.
No move.
Second.
All those any comments or questions? None? Anybody out in the audience? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
With respect to the treasurer's report, Mike?
Yeah. We have a list of a series of batches of disbursements suggested to us by John Alshaw as Director of Finance. I just want to point out a couple items for our education, keep you aware. As an example, I'm going to try and do this every month. One of the disbursements this month has to do with Aqua PA and our hydrant fire service charges that the municipalities pay for fire hydrants, the capitalization of them and the ongoing service and maintenance. We pay $90,000 a year as a local government for those hydrants. Another one of our expenses, which is the one we know a lot about, and that is our police. Our monthly police bill is $350,000. That translates to a current budget of about $4.2 million, about half of our budget. A lot of money, but it's something you should be aware of. We're in arbitration now. We don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but it's likely it's going to go up from there. Another example is our appointed engineer, civil engineering group, Benoni Associates. They do a lot of different things for us, from monitoring ponds and doing design work there, land development reviews, etc. Want to let folks know that with regard to the pipeline, Mariner 2, and the work that's going on here, we've had issues ongoing with noise. Benoni was involved with helping us get the proper measurements to file citations and violations against Sunoco. The cost of that was almost $11,000. So to enforce ordinances, it costs money if we're going to do it. It's beyond the principle of the thing. It's what needs to be done to have a proper order and to make sure the community is not negatively impacted. Just a couple examples. By the way, John's right, we haven't had that much activity with snow this year, but we've had enough where Public Works has had to get out. We have an $11,000 salt bill this month, $62 a ton, it costs money. So just kind of awareness of the cost of running a business that happens to be a local government. And other than that, I have no specific questions on the disbursements. If any other board members do, of course, John is here to answer them. And if there are none, I would make a motion to graciously accept the receipts and to approve the disbursements as recommended by the Director of Finance, John Alshaw. for the
I'll
period.
second that.
All those in comments or questions up here? The audience? All those in favor of the motion? Thank you very much. Now, I just want you to know that Mike lives in East Goshen. He used to be the manager of East Bradford. Now he's a director of finance with East Bradford. He's on his way out in retirement. However, he and John Walsall have this competition amongst each other to see who can say the most intelligent things at each of these meetings.
I surrender every time to John. He's my mentor.
I am the one that cast the vote.
He is
And
my
I
mentor.
think that John Walsall is ahead 10-0 so far.
You shall not ever get another Biscotti from me.
I want to thank David, he is now gerrymandered, oh, that's an interesting word for it, right? Isn't it, Carol? Gerrymandered this microphone so that I can use it. And don't forget, if anybody, I know there's going to be some people talking tonight, so you gotta come up to the microphone. We don't have any old business, nor do we have a public hearing tonight, thanks be to God. So we'll get right into new business, and that is the recommendation for Community Day. We have the benefit of this information. I'll ask Ricky to fill in for our Public Works Director, Jason, that time.
Okay, Jason's out sick, strep throat, with him and the family, so, anyway, they have shop vendors for Community Day, and Jason has recommended Bixler Pyrotechnics and One Stop Party Shop for the Community Day. And both of them are the lowest price
Yeah.
vendors.
Do we know, Rick, who was the fireworks vendor last year?
It was not, I think it was,
The D&M?
it was not Fire Bixler, it was somebody else.
Yeah, I'm just curious whether they bid this year or not, and which one it was.
They were not.
I don't think it's the most expensive one, John. I think it's one of the two in the middle.
I'm just curious.
But anyway, it is it's June and the weekend prior to 4th of July, so we hope everybody comes. There's usually a large crowd, particularly for the fireworks, just not for the other things that go on during the day. So Jason does a wonderful job. I'm sorry to hear that he's sick, but is there a motion to accept Jason's recommendation?
I move to select Pittsburgh Pyrotechnics and One Stop Party Shop for the above listed Community Day services.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments up here, board?
Yes, is it accurate, John, that it's likely that the Friends of East Goshen may end up covering a good bit of these costs?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I can't answer that at this point. The next meeting is in 2 or 3 weeks, and that group will start to, get their ducks in a row to start.
Did he issue a letter, Mike?
Well, I did, and
Okay.
it's on my desk, it's on my list with the Goshen Fire Company and the East Goshen tax bill, which I just gave to you, and yeah, I've got some things on my list, but they're
And John, and if
kind
you
of like
send him a
Christmas.
check, John will send you a very nice letter that you can give to your account.
I'm still trying to pay off the historical commission ornament that I bought.
Yeah, that's $10, so he might be really a big spender, I must tell you. I do have to say that John puts $25,000 of his own money into the Friends of East Goshen Fund each year. That way we can assure that we have enough money to cover the Community Day.
No, but that was
You
just
hear
why
that,
I want
Mike?
to make folks.
You hear that,
aware.
Mike?
Yes, I did. But the Friends of East Goshen have to be very important in the Community Day. obviously.
Okay, the next that I know Carol Ruby's here, I don't know if
We
she wrote
didn't,
something. Oh, we didn't take a vote.
You
The second
motion to say vote.
I made the move.
Yeah, I know, there was a second, I saw you shaking over there. Any comments? We did get up to
Yes,
comment.
aye.
No, out there.
Aye.
Anybody wants to comment? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Now to the real gerrymandering part of this. Carol, you going to be the ones?
I
Come on up.
am.
You have to talk pretty carefully and close to that microphone.
Pleasure to see you, Carol.
Thank you.
Oh, we got a helper.
There you go.
Oh, you got a helper.
This is Trish Rooney, who's very active with
Once
their
the state representative, always the state representative. Good to see you.
Thank you. And good evening, Chairman Shane and members of the board. My name is Carol Rubley, and I've been a proud resident of East Goshen Township, living in Hershey'sville for 3.5 years. I have been a volunteer with Fair Districts, Pennsylvania, working with the Chester County branch. I wish to express my sincere thanks to the Board of Supervisors for this opportunity to speak with you about a proposed resolution for a fairer method of redistricting state and congressional legislative districts. I am asking you to consider passing a resolution which you received, which is part of a statewide campaign by Fair Districts PA, which is a nonpartisan, citizen-led coalition working to create a redistricting process that is transparent, impartial, and fair. And by way of background, Fair Districts PA was founded in January of 2016 by representatives from the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, Common Cause Pennsylvania, Committee of 70, Pennsylvania Council of Churches, and others concerned about accountable government. Several of these founding organizations have been working to address partisan gerrymandering since the 1980s and 90s. Legally, Fair Districts PA is a project of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed voters and active civic engagement. Fair Districts PA is endorsed by and works in conversation with a wide range of local and statewide organizations. It is led by volunteers from across the state who bring a wealth of experience, expertise, and varying political perspectives. I would like to address gerrymandering. It is the manipulation of electoral districts to benefit one political party or person. This practice is not new and goes back a few hundred years and has been practiced for decades in Pennsylvania by both parties. But it has grown far worse in recent years as new mapping and data mining technologies allow parties to predict district outcomes with great precision and thus draw borders to protect one party's control. Just think back to the infamous former district lines of the 6th Congressional District, which was ruled improper by the Supreme Court. Gerrymandered district lines weaken the power of our votes, and party leaders of both parties are working to keep it this way. Our current redistricting process, which allows party leaders to determine district lines and without public input, is clearly a conflict of interest, and the time has come to end this corruption. At Fair Districts, we believe that gerrymandering is the root cause of many of our problems in government today: gridlock, polarization, and lack of compromise. I know we don't see this at the local level, but we do at the state level and national. Pennsylvania has the distinction of being cited in the national press as one of the 3 worst gerrymandered states in the nation. Many of our elected officials have been working across the aisle to change that. This resolution calls for the establishment of an independent redistricting citizens commission to take over the process of drawing our lines in a fair, impartial, and transparent manner. Fair District supports House Bills 22 and 23 and Senate Bills 1022 and 1023. Our own Senator Killian is the prime sponsor, along with Lisa Boscola from the Bethlehem area, and Senator Dinniman has been and is a supporter of the bills in the Senate. And State Representative Carolyn Committa is a co-sponsor of bills. All of Chester County elected representatives and senators have signed on to support an independent redistricting commission, through current proposed legislation, with the exception of 2 House members from the northern and western sections of Chester County, and one has indicated support but doesn't like to co-sponsor bills. In Chester County, 25 municipalities have signed a resolution with additions expected this week. And our Chester County commissioners provided us a letter of support to call for fair redistricting. Across all of Pennsylvania, 351 governing bodies, including 21 county commissions, have passed such resolutions. These elected bodies, with both Republican and Democratic majorities, represent over 8.8 million Pennsylvanians, which is 68% of the estimated population of the state. Statewide polls show that 68% of people support an independent commission. Adoption of redistricting reform will help to ensure, to the extent possible, that we can reduce the incidence of dividing municipalities and counties. On a personal note, as a former state representative representing the 157th legislative district in eastern and northern Chester County, I was affected by redistricting after the 2000 census. Previous to that, I represented 5 intact municipalities, all in the eastern part of Chester County. The census figures show that the population for that redistricting period did not require any changes. Politics, however, entered, and my district lost 2 Chester County townships, and my district was moved into a portion of Montgomery County. 4 precincts were in Lower Providence, and 1 precinct in West Norriton, which is a totally different school district. This was not fair to the residents, local official, or me as the elected representative. After the last redistricting in 2011, the borough of Phoenixville, which was originally in my district, was separated, with the northern section, also more Democratic, moved into another legislative district. Previously, Monroe County up in the Poconos was carved into 5 different districts. People were very unhappy, and at the last redistricting, busloads of the residents went to Harrisburg, and it was resolved, and the county was united with one spokesperson. But then Montgomery County, near us, was carved up. This is not fair to the local jurisdiction, who need representatives working on their behalf. I would like to conclude by stating that redistricting reform is not a partisan issue, and the vast majority of individuals support this measure in the interest of protecting our democracy. I hope that you will agree to support this resolution, and thank you for your consideration. And as I said, Trish Rooney is here, and if you have any tough questions, I think she can answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Carol, thank you very much. In fairness to us, we appreciate what you have done tonight. We have received a little bit of information about this. We have not seen the bill itself. As you can imagine, everybody's concerned about the political implications of redistricting, and we hope that we find that this is, as you presented, fair and balanced, as you might say. And I would suspect that we're going to need a little bit of time to look at that, if that's what the board wants to do. I would like to ask Rick to get us each a copy of the bill, because I think it's important in this particular case to read the bill itself. We have a constitutional scholar on our board, and our female supervisor, and she is trying to educate us about what the Constitution says with respect to this stuff. So we would like to, well, I know for a fact, because there's quite an extensive list of the municipalities that have responded,
Right.
and we intend to do that one way or the other. And I think we just probably going to need a month or so to take care of that, given the other things we have to do. So we're not in a position to jump on this tonight, but
I understand.
we are in a position for anybody who wants to ask Carol any questions to do that. But I do think that we need a little bit of time, and we definitely need the bill. And if Michelle wants to say anything, and because I found that she was talking to us a little bit about the implications of the Constitution
Yeah.
and this particular way of going about doing things. And I found that kind of interesting, and I would like to hear a little bit more about that in due time. But this way of doing it seems to be a heck of a lot better to me than the way it's been done, where the party in power gets all the pennies. And it's just not fair to the people that spend the time to be these representatives, as far as I'm concerned. The most that we get to gerrymander is the fire department responsibility. And that's not much of a job, I must tell you. So I appreciate the work that you're doing and your team. And we were certainly not going to forget about doing this. It's just a question of being able to do this where we all feel comfortable. So if anybody wants to say anything.
If I can just say, I actually have read House Bill 22 and 23. I've read Senate Bills 10, 22, and 10, 23 as well. So I do have a lot of background in both of those, well, all of those versions, if you will. And we can discuss them after anybody has any questions later on, if you have any questions.
We will definitely do our homework.
Okay, and if I can just add, there are the two bills before the House and the Senate, and one sets up the whole process for forming the commission. And it is totally different from anything we've done in Pennsylvania, but that's what that is. And then the second one involves the amendment to the Constitution, which can be pretty complicated, but it's possible. So.
Do you need any feedback at all from residents? There's not many here, but if they want to make if you have any questions for them, that's fine. If they have any questions for you, that's fine too.
Sure.
This isn't just a matter of us. Again, as I said last night, where we represent everybody, this is one of these areas that comes up where we're asked to make a decision on behalf of all the residents of East Goshen. And we will do that. But we just want to make sure that we're doing it with all the informed information.
I understand.
So does anybody else have anything for Carol? Okay, we'll get back to you.
I think she has.
Christina does. Christina, come on up. You get out of it once, but you're not gonna get out of it twice. I let you away with it, I don't know. I'm gonna get fired in my job here.
Good evening, Christina Morley, married Elpin Oaks. So this is kind of the first time that I'm hearing about it, and admittedly, I don't know that much except for what you were just talking about, and I just did a little cursory research on my phone. But I'm just wondering what is going to be the process so that maybe Michelle can explain it to people at a future township meeting, and then maybe give us an opportunity to digest what you're, how you're explaining it. So give us a summary, give us some time to do some research, and then, how are we as a township gonna give feedback and understand it? And I guess most importantly, I'm wondering, like, how would this affect us as a township? I don't really know.
This is the kind of questions we want to answer. What we will be doing within the next month or two is having this on the agenda, which I know you follow. Each of us will do our own investigation, probably have some conversations amongst ourselves, which we can always do, as long as we don't make a decision. And then we will come out here and make a decision. So at that time, if Michelle would like to say something, that's fine. If anybody else wants to say anything, that's fine. It could be even questions. We still have questions at that time, because from a political perspective, we all have our own persuasions, and it's important that we make sure that we're comfortable with this. And it's particularly true if people see us and say something to us as we mosey around the township and various things that we do. Sometimes we get people with feedback information, sometimes we don't. But I think this is one of those things that you need to spend the time to make sure that you know what you're doing, and rather than just taking a vote over something and relying on somebody else to know for you.
Okay, so
So
just to recap, you guys are gonna talk about it amongst yourselves, and we're gonna talk about it during township meetings, and you're gonna get feedback back and forth before the board as a group makes a decision.
We talk about it out here, and how often we talk about it, amongst ourselves. It's not like we live together. We have to get together. So the point of the matter is, at least for sure, the night that we do this, the people will be able to ask any question of us that they want. If somebody has found something, like we know Michelle has some expertise, if she wants to share that she's perfectly welcome to do that. If nobody wants to share anything, well, I guess we don't have to do that. We can come out here and just vote if we want to, but I don't think that will be the case in this particular matter.
So I think what I'm asking for though is that there's some time lapse between the time that you vote on it that night and the time that people have to ask questions and stuff. I'd like some sort of discussion time in between, because I think that there has to be a time when Michelle has the opportunity to explain what it is, and people have the opportunity to talk about it and everything, and then.
Well, actually, Carol has just explained basically what her.
Right, but there's like hardly anybody here.
But the thing is, it's something that is, something that can be researched. It's really not a matter of discussion as much as it's just looking at the bill and each person deciding for themselves what kind of discussion needs to be had with anybody else.
Okay, so let me just ask a simple question then. So how would this, if adopted or if supported by the board, how would it have an impact here in East Goshen?
It won't.
Christina,
Okay.
they're asking us for an opinion on it, not a motion to.
You just want an opinion.
Sure. Yes.
That's all it is.
That's all that it is.
That's all it is.
We have no legislative authority to approve this or act upon it. It's an opinion. I think that's a good word. The legislative process in the Commonwealth is working on this. It's bipartisan. That's a good thing.
And it's just saying that we support
From my
that.
perspective, let the legislature work. Let the legislature work. They're both in support of it. Let them work it out. It's citizens can have individual comments. That's fine, but the resolution in front of with the board to me is not of import. It's the individual decisions and letting the legislature work. Again, it's bipartisan. They're both supporting it, so let them work through it.
And the decision is made in Harrisburg by the legislators, but because there's a constitutional amendment, two separate sessions of the legislature have to approve basically the same bills. Then it goes to the voters throughout the state for approval. So it's a long process, and really basically you're looking at the concept of moving to an independent commission, and then the rest is left to Harrisburg, the details. But you again have a say with voter approval once it's passed by two different sessions of the legislature.
Let me say one more thing, because people might not have picked up on this. The present procedure for districting, redistricting is in the Constitution of the state right now.
Right.
So if you want to start your research, that's where you want to start.
Actually, there is a constitutional conflict with this particular, with any of these plans, and if you want to discuss it further, I'm happy to do that. But at this point, the Constitution, that's we the people. We the people have given the power to the legislature to actually do redistricting. We haven't said to the legislature, you can do it or you can delegate for somebody else to do it. We haven't given that power to the government. And we also don't have a voter initiative in this state, so we can't just go to a voter initiative like they've done in other states.
And 7 states have put different forms of citizen commissions in place, and about 13 more are considering it as we speak. So it's a growing movement. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Carol. Thanks, Carol. Whoa, we got some more people coming up to the mic.
Hi, my name is Patricia Rooney, and I am here as a volunteer of Fair Districts. We understand it's in the Constitution. We're trying to change the Constitution because when the Constitution was created, they did not have computer data mapping like they do now. And the partisanship of the process has really convoluted the way we have elections.
That's an opinion. Back when they didn't have computers, they were real sharp about who voted for who.
That's true.
The concept of gerrymandering came up in Massachusetts before 1800. And it's been done by Democrats and Republicans continuously for 240 years.
Good point.
So it's not something new.
No, it's not new. It's been done by both parties.
Computers don't change it all that much. Eldridge Jury up in Massachusetts knew exactly who was voting for him and who wasn't.
But it's something bad.
Well, wait.
That's an opinion
Wait,
too.
come to the mic if you're gonna.
Step up.
The concept is that politicians
I
get
like
pick their voters instead of voters
Go
picking
ahead,
their
please.
politicians. And
That's
just
all
because it's been around for 250 years doesn't mean it's still relevant today. And I believe that that computer and metadata is a factor without a doubt, because now you can go right down to the household. You can determine, and you can carve out, and as it was stated here, we're one of the third worst states in the country for gerrymandering, and it is a partisan issue because Democrats do it to Republicans and Republicans do it to Democrats, and it's happened over a long time. So, just go on record as the homework that I've done. It's time to address this on a local and national basis.
Kay Whittle, 1626 East Strasburg Road. Hadn't planned to say anything tonight, but I do want to thank Carol and Trish for coming and telling us a little bit about that, and I appreciate your input. But I just want to say, I think, Mike, you're selling yourself short, that your opinions don't matter, or that what you have to say doesn't matter, because if I went online because I'm just interested, and I'm interested in that it is a bipartisan effort, which I think is time for it to happen. But I think to say that what you as East Goshen Township thinks doesn't matter, I think is incorrect. Because I think that if we can say that we have a figure that 68% of Pennsylvanians are now interested in fair districts, I think that the way that the state government finds out that we are interested is that all the townships and boroughs are going and passing this resolution and saying this is what we want. So I very much hope that you will end up finding that you can support this resolution. And I think that what East Goshen Township thinks does matter. And I hope that I wanted to congratulate Cowan, Londonderry, and East Bradford, who actually passed a resolution this month. So those are our neighbors. And, I think we can do as well as they can. And I hope that will happen. But I absolutely think that we should figure out a way, whether it's meetings or whatever, to make sure that people understand what it is, understand that it is bipartisan, and understand that I think its time has come.
I thank you for your opinion on that as well. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution and the Pennsylvania Constitution. At this point, there is not enough information that convinces me that there is not a conflict, and I just can't support that right now.
Right, well, that's why we need to talk about it. But I think you should include the township folks in this conversation, so. And I'm sure you will. And I'm very glad, Marnie, that you're saying that you want input, that you don't really want to be responsible for sort of ad hoc making these decisions, and I appreciate that.
Hey, Gordon, see
So
that?
I appreciate it.
We
And
need that for everything, Gordon.
I'm really looking forward to the dialogue that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just so that Mike doesn't feel slandered,
Sorry, Mike.
Mike is an official in East Bradford. He's not an elected official like he is here because he lives here, but he works over there. So he has some firsthand information with respect to the discussion that took place in East Bradford before they didn't, let's put it this way, they certainly didn't rush into this. They gave us some thoughtful introspection, so.
But I don't have any specific information except the motion that was passed, they adopted the resolution. But I wasn't in on the conversation with the board.
Well, you were loose there anyway.
They put me in the room with a calculator and turned it.
Well, we might do the same thing, Mike.
In 4 years, you can do that.
Well, Christina, you just followed the agenda, which, by the way, that reminds me of something. I did this last night, so if you guys want to do it again, that's fine. Who in this room is involved follows constant contact. Eric does, and me.
Kay, and
Couple
Eric,
people.
and
I just want to make sure that everybody understands, and if you pick up the agenda for tonight on the way out, on the back side of this, it tells you how to do that. That is one of the ways, in fact, the best way that we have to communicate information. And you can sign up for anything that you want to get, from one thing to 100 things. And it's for those that don't think that they get enough information from us, please sign up for Constant Contact so you get what you want. And we only have roughly 2,200 people that are signed up out of over 18,000. So we don't have a very good percentage. And some of that 2,200 are multiple people in the same family. So you really don't have 2,200 families. So if you can do that, and John's the person of the information, I think I'm writing the numbers down close. But the point of the matter is, it's really important to be a member of Constant Contact. And for those that are really interested in staying with all the pipeline information, Rick does a wonderful job of putting stuff onto our website as soon as he knows something. And he's a walking encyclopedia about the pipeline. So if you call any one of, some of us, all of us know something. Some of us know a little bit more than others because we have a focus there. But Rick knows pretty much everything there is to know. So we are very fortunate in East Goshen to have that. But our homepage will get you to all the information you need about the pipeline, and Constant Contact will give you all the information you need about anything that you want to get from the township. So that's my advertisement for the evening.
Marty, thanks. I just wanted to ask one question. I don't want it to be another 15 minutes, and so I'll be at fault if I ask this. But Carol, or anyone else, can you tell me what the status is of both these bills? Are they still stuck in committee, or are they going to be aired anytime soon on the House floor or the Senate floor? Are they expected to get out of committee?
Yes, they are expected to get out of committee. You may have seen the Morning Call in the last week has had 2 articles saying Garth Everett, the chair of the state government committee, has some people in his committee who said that they support the bills, but they didn't really mean it. They were faking so that we would leave them alone. That is very disconcerting. It's difficult to express what it means to citizens to be legislators. And I do think that when it does come out of committee, we have the votes. The Senate bills are new, so they don't have that many co-sponsors yet, but everyone is rushing to look at them and sign their names. The House bills have 96 co-sponsors. They have the most co-sponsors of any bills in the House currently. So it's a fight, and that's why we need your help. We want the legislators to see that there's this wave, and it is not going to go away. I mean, we have 10 more years of gerrymandering, and I don't think Carol mentioned that it will be the Republicans who do the congressional lines and the Democrats who do the legislative lines this time, probably. And that's just not satisfactory to voters. We don't want it to be so obvious that we don't have much of a choice. And we're not, as much as we like our legislators, we're not in the business of keeping them in office. I understand they have a hard job. And actually turning this over to an independent commission is hugely courageous of them to trust that we can be nonpartisan. But we have seen what partisanship does And they are partisan beings. That's what they do. They're political beings. And they are not told that they have to be nonpartisan. They can be as partisan as they want to be. And it doesn't really work for us. And the Constitution is a marvelous document, but it can be changed. You don't have to keep it, under glass and not do anything to it after 200 some years. It can be changed. We can improve.
Well, and I appreciate that, but one of the reasons I was asking the question is the time that we may be taking to review this and learn more, as I certainly need to learn more. And so if there was some sense that it was going to be moving out of committee, that would be a good thing. In Pennsylvania, we have, well, what do we have as far as municipalities in Pennsylvania, Rick? Is it 2,600 townships? Combined townships. But at this point in time, we have 350 that have signed the resolution. There are a lot of townships and municipal governments that haven't considered it yet. I don't know what the status is in the distribution, but that's why I was asking about the timing. If this isn't going to be out of committee before the end of the year, we can all improve our knowledge bases on it, et cetera. So that was part of the answer.
It has to be out. It has to be out.
Or it dies.
Yeah.
Right.
This is June. We're looking at June as the deadline. So we need an answer.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. All right, I'm sorry to drag you, I just want to.
Moving right along, for those that have an agenda, it will be item 12C, and it has to do with construction. The history here is that there's been some effort to update our noise ordinance, and there's been some people that have commented on that one way or the other. Rick and we have decided that a more proper way may be to consider a construction ordinance, because this whole thing came about due to an issue with Sunoco, and it's much easier to deal with a single issue than just to deal with a whole potpourri of issues. So I'll let Rick explain exactly what he did and what he didn't do.
Well, this essentially, if adopted, would prohibit construction or demolition after 10 o'clock at night, before 7 o'clock in the morning. And the only exemptions would be emergency work. So wires were down, Pico was out, had to put the wires back up. Same thing with the gas leak, or same thing with a telephone wire. They could perform that work. If the work was performed by the government, like either the township or PennDOT, and the reason that's in there is because PennDOT paves roads at night. Just because they don't want to do it during the day where there's too much disruption. The township paves roads at night for that same reason. The other exemption would be snow removal, because that, some people consider that construction or demolition. And then the last one will be construction that was taking place inside of an enclosed building. If you were building a new building, obviously the excavation, all that kind of stuff would not take place at night. But we've all been past the Wawa, where they shut the Wawa down, at 9 o'clock at night, and you come in the next morning and the Wawa is refurnished. Well, all that work has a permit, and it's taking place within a fully enclosed building, and in reality, unless you were going to the Wawa, you wouldn't know it, so there will be an exemption for that. So this, I did run this by a solicitor, she was okay with it, Kristen was okay with it, but this would mean that if Sunoco worked past 10 o'clock at night, we wouldn't need to have a meter. Right. Basically, a police officer or the code could basically get them cited. And that was the impetus for this.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Chester County or the ordinance for East Goshen Township on construction. But when we get the comments, I'd like to ask for the question.
Well, is there a second? No, before you start, is there a second?
There's a second.
Okay.
Procedurally, we had an ordinance, so we have to advertise and have public hearings, stuff like that.
This is just
I take your motion will be to proceed with
Okay,
it.
yeah, proceed with the other hearing and advertising and so on. So my question is under exemptions B, work or activities performed by sponsored by governmental agencies or their contractors. Not a defined term, and is a public utility a government agency?
No.
Is there any?
The government is federal government, local government, state government, county.
Okay.
So that's how,
There's no wiggle room there.
I can, this way, we can spell out federal, state, county, and township.
I think
Yes.
it's better.
I think we need to enumerate it.
Okay.
Yeah, just
That's a good
concerned
idea.
that somebody's gonna challenge it legally,
That's-
saying, hey,
that's a
we're
good
a public
idea.
utility.
Let's be specific.
I think there may be a number of questions from the board. But Rick, one of the things that I need to ask is, we have a noise ordinance component in both our, I'll call it the code, as well as zoning, even though zoning is part of the code. We have two places that in what we do today, where we have some regulations regarding noise. Is this in addition to that, or has something been removed from either one of those two things?
This would solve the instant problem of what to do if someone, Sunoco works past 10 o'clock.
Okay, it's not doing with the
Once we do this, take this action, then the next step would be, we could leave the noise ordinance alone and then do whatever we need to do to take the noise provisions out of the zoning ordinance. Okay, that would be the next
All
step.
right, we have a series of steps to do. This is kind of like a standalone thing.
Correct.
Okay. And this is going to be zoning?
No, this is a standalone ordinance.
So it's going to be a code?
In other words, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I have a question regarding the 122-3 exemptions. A, it says emergency work to provide or restore electricity, water, or other public utilities. And because Sunoco's has been deemed a public utility, we need to enumerate which of the public utilities.
Now, if Sunoco had to come in and do work because
Okay.
their pipeline had a problem,
Oh, okay.
then that they could do
They
that.
can do it, okay.
But the issue's going to get down to is it's not like they can put it, it's not like that Pico can have them start running wires and putting poles in, new poles in at night. They can't do
They
that.
can't do that, okay.
Right.
Do we need
It's
to,
restoring the power.
do we
Okay.
need to further identify or define emergency, or is that just
Public utility.
pedantic stuff?
We do, words,
Yeah,
an occurrence or set of circumstances involving
Oh, yes,
actual
yes,
limits
yes,
will be defined.
yes, yes,
If you define public utility.
Well, public utility,
Well,
Sunoco,
pipelines are considered a public
Sunoco-
utility once they get that certificate.
correct, but work to restore them is different than work to install them initially or construct.
Well,
Yes.
doesn't even
I'm
say
just
work.
saying that to avoid a mess, you're better off having a clear definition of what a public utility is or isn't.
You spell it out, but that was,
I think you're gonna run into
Okay.
a problem.
but under this bill, under this thing, if Aqua was gonna do work to install a new facility, they had to be doing that.
That's correct.
They can fix the water leak if they want to.
Yeah, but we all know that they're a utility, but there's a
It's
little
not-
fuzziness.
it's the same thing, it's no different than Denver Bell Telephone.
That's right.
If the telephone company or electric company wanted to install poles, new poles,
They can.
they can't. But they're fixing it because the poles came down.
Max
Yeah.
emergency, yes.
So there will be, part of this maybe is that, sometimes where, they do the installation at night because of permit restrictions. One of the trade-offs will be is that work will now have to be done during the day. So it's not utopia.
I'm just
Let me
looking.
ask a question if I may.
Well,
Will this allow or not allow the pipeline to be worked on? That's one thing.
The pipeline installation they're doing now, they cannot do it past 10 o'clock. It is new. But if Sunoco, which is a pipeline, energy transfer, if any of them had an emergency, that they had to come out and do work on that pipeline because of an emergency situation, they could do it whenever they had to do it.
Whenever they have to do it.
No different than the electric company. If there's an emergency, the electric company will work around the clock.
What if they want to do 24/7?
They can't.
They
They
can't.
can't.
Can they get an exemption in any
There's no provision.
Instead of coming to us to ask for that exemption like they did, they can't do that. They're automatically they can't do it.
I understand.
Christine,
I'll make it quick.
thank you.
Very quick.
It is my understanding, I've heard it numerous times, I've been asked this question numerous times. Why do we allow construction to go until 10 o'clock when other townships halt construction at 7 p.m.? And if it is possible, while you are enacting this new construction ordinance, can you change it to 7 p.m.? I've heard that we are the only township that is allowing work until 10 p.m.
Well, that's interesting, but I don't think we've had complaints about going to 10, from 7 to 10.
The answer is, Ricky's, I'm gonna see if I know the answer, then I'll ask Ricky to make sure that I say it correctly. Basically, that 10 o'clock was to permit people to do work at home, that work during the day. We didn't have, when this thing was conceived, we didn't have a Sunoco. We didn't have some of these other things that are there today. Whether or not that ordinance is appropriate today or the time's appropriate, we can always fix something if we want to. If we think it's appropriate to do, I should say. Now, so the question was, it was for the benefit of the homeowners, because we are a residential community. We are a homeowner community. We're not a business community like some people are. Consequence of that, we wanted to enable them to have as much time as possible to do what they do. That's one of the reasons it also goes into Saturday and Sunday. So people do ask that question, but I think I'm correct. But Ricky is the purser of the correct information.
Well, that's one of the reasons. The other one is that the 7 to 10 ties with all the rest of the provisions in the ordinance. In other words, we're going to prevent people from working on their house past 7 o'clock at night. But by the same token, the guy can play his music until 10 o'clock at night. And again, the idea was that the goal was to try and preserve the sleeping hours, which were generally perceived as being 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
But wouldn't this also allow me as a homeowner to do construction on my house until 10 p.m. at night?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
And that's pretty annoying to all of my neighbors. I still think that 7 p.m. is more reasonable.
And I would tell you, other people would say that, I don't know why they have to start at 7 in the morning. And so I guess at some point, you could get it down to where nobody can do anything at any time, just because. But again, the 10 p.m. to 7 p.m. prohibition basically is consistent throughout the rest of the ordinance.
So I'm going to urge you to strongly please consider the 7 p.m. time frame. Today, I was just emailing with Rick about that hammering that was going on at Sunoco at Bowtree. I don't know if any of you were able to hear it. It was so incredibly loud. I heard it when I was inside my house. I'm in Marydale. I walked over to Bowtree with my Decibel X app, and I stood at 352, and the reading was 82.5. And Rick, and then I emailed you again, and I asked what the maximum allowable was, and you said it was 62.
An LEQ of 65.
An LEQ of 65, so it's a sustained time of 65 decibels. And so the first time I took the reading was at 3:06 p.m. And then when we emailed the second time, it was like at 4:15. It was still pounding away. And I just thought, I said to my husband, I can't imagine this going on until 10 p.m. tonight. And this is at 82.5 decibels. It was I feel for, I don't know if there's any Bowtree people here today. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And then it stopped at like 4:45 or 5 o'clock. And that was after I had urged you to please send somebody from the township over there. You told me it's not enforceable because our engineer wasn't here. And I said, even if it's not enforceable, send somebody over there and tell them that they are well above the allowable limit.
We did reach out to them, and they said they were going to bring another sound barrier across the bottom end.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. So all I'm asking, please consider the 7 PM. I think it's reasonable whether we're talking about Sunoco or whether I have somebody with a jackhammer in my driveway. I think allowing someone to do that until 10 PM is ridiculous. So that's all I'm asking.
I just make a note that I was just looking at West Goshen. Their time provisions are 7 AM until 9 PM every day. East Bradford's is 6 AM until, I believe it's 9 or 10 in East Bradford. So I just share a couple of immediate municipalities.
You don't have trees.
You
You don't have any houses.
I'm a little surprised that there's 7 AM actually, because I had a major addition put on the back of my house. It took about 6 months, and they showed up at 5:30 every day, got to work at 6 o'clock. So it's so I know contractors like to work early and knock off early a lot of times. So, maybe just thinking about the hours and then good input, we might think, and then, but I take the point that, it's gotta be consistent with other things, the other ordinances that we have, so we gotta consider.
What about things like daylight savings?
One of the problems that we have, and it's really a problem that we have to face, Mr. Mayor, and that is Sunoco, we expect them to be done by the end of the year. We expect that. Now, we have to be very careful that you don't over-analyze the Sunoco situation to the detriment of everything else. So when you talk about looking at things, you've got to look at things in the context that Sunoco is going to go away. And the question is there anything like another one coming? And you don't know that. But we've had a lot of pipelines coming and going in this township for a long period of time, and we haven't had that problem until now. Now, whether or not this continues is another matter. So that's something we'll have to consider. So there's probably as many examples as doing something one way or the other way as there is, and it's a very difficult subject to make everybody happy. We always seem to be disadvantaging someone when you do something like this. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means that you gotta be careful. You know, I like that saying, you know what you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's, what you don't know is the thing that really kills you. And so that takes some very careful thinking about all the things that can come, that are impacted by doing something like what you're talking about. But I'm not suggesting you shouldn't do it. I'm just suggesting that it's a little bit harder to do than what you think it is.
Unintended consequences.
Right.
Well, most contractors, I think, would work from 7 AM to 4 PM. When I had my addition done, my contractors were there for 6 months, and those were their hours.
Yeah, that's typical. I agree.
I don't think you're gonna have a contractor working on your home until 10 PM at night.
A lot of people do their own work.
Well, a lot of people do their own, that's what.
Well,
what
that's
the purpose is.
true, but
Yeah, you come home from work, you have dinner, and then you work.
See, it wasn't that was set up, it wasn't for the contractors, it was for the people.
Yeah.
And that's why that was what it was, notwithstanding the fact that Ricky talked about, it does comply with a lot of other things. It's all lined up in the same thing. So we'll take a look at it.
Is it of value to get a survey of some of the neighboring municipalities just as a reference point? It's easy enough to
You
do.
almost have to.
or survey the resident.
I think you have to. You can't be so far out of whack from everybody that it just doesn't make any sense.
It's pretty easy to pick up. I mean, it's right on the E codes on most municipalities in this area have it right in.
I think these references can do a survey.
I think they are, but they're gonna wait for the results from East Goshen first. East Goshen has more money.
Each question.
Jay Grapel, 1626 East Westford Road. I don't know, I just heard this. You can have a rule for contractors and a rule for individuals. I don't think, I mean, the individuals, you let them do what they want occasionally, please stay away from them, but contractor can, seem to me you have to do the rules.
You could. You could. I'm not saying
I
you can't.
I understand why you want to step on individual homeowners want to do something at 9 o'clock at night because whatever, but I think you can be more restrictive with their contractors.
I would suspect or ever tell you can't.
I don't know, I have no idea.
Again, based on I would expect a lawyer would tell you, you can't have one set of rules. Yeah, it's, yeah.
Discrimination gets us a lot of times. We try to separate things.
Industrial work versus home-based.
You hold contractors to a lot of rules, and people, when the contractor comes in, then you have your building inspector come in, and there are people, individuals, working on their home all day long, you have no clue what they're doing.
The same rules apply to when you're building a deck, whether you build a deck or your contractor builds a deck. And it doesn't, and the rules don't care about who's building it. The same rules apply. And we've cited people for working without a permit, for homeowners for working out a permit, and contractors for working without a
Okay, and you've knocked somebody's neighbor's door, when he's doing some electrical work,
We
you're
get calls,
clueless about that.
if our guys see deck boards in the driveway.
I understand, well, so deck is out in the open, all I'm just saying is, our residents don't follow your rules
We
the
got,
way you
we
think
got,
they do, you know that.
we got a
Of course,
call,
that's all
the other day
Oh, my
from one of
goodness.
our fire marshals that noticed
Absolutely.
there was a load of drywall being dropped off in the driveway. Why is it in the driveway? And apparently the house was pretty beat up, and the homeowner was, it was a resale. The house was pretty well beat up, so they're redrawn. So we actively go out and look for people that are, make sure people have permits. Because everybody's gotta follow the rules, whether it's a contractor or
A lot of times we're making rules for the exception rather than the rule, and I suspect that not too many contractors or homeowners are maybe working on their homes after dark. So I think we're kind of overthinking this. So I think if we come up with reasonable hours across the board, I think we'll be okay.
And when does reasonable discernment become discrimination?
But it's we all move these Bradfords. We all move these Bradfords. Okay, I'm gonna call it a question. We gotta get moving here. Call it a question. All those in favor of adopting Rick's motion? Moving forward. I mean, we're not having here.
Yeah, we're having it here.
tweak it.
We're not, you never have to, you have to have a hearing.
Yes.
So the motion is to move
And
it from hearing and advertising.
Okay, so all those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Good, we're ready to roll. We'll see what happens when that takes place. That'll be for those that are gonna sign up for constant contact, you're gonna know when that's gonna take place. Or if you follow the agenda every week.
Could we do items E and F and get them out of the way, and maybe anything else, and then finish up with the ABC goals, because that could become extended? Guys, what do you think about that?
We'll do that. We'll consider the first one, E first, that's against, applying for a grant for gas leak detectors. Is anybody opposed to that?
I have questions.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, there's a number of G2 sensors, and I wasn't sure exactly which ones we were buying. These are handheld units. We already have units that do natural gas, so these are units that do propane, butane, methane, and so on. But one of the interesting things is these are handheld units, and I couldn't find anything with how much, in what proximity do you need? These units are different than the natural gas units in that they're at a lower explosive limit detection at parts per million. So I just was wondering how, in what proximity do you need to be? Because one of the demonstrations I watched, they actually have what they call a survey drag tube. They hook it to the end of the sensor and they drag it along the ground, and it's picking up, gas leaks. So I'm just wondering,
It's interesting.
are these really effective? Can you walk into a plume with these things to find out what kind of gas it is and how close you have to get? These are, they're very sensitive tools.
1% is lower explosive. If Mark recommended them, I would go with these.
This is just for one, the 6487 and change, that's for
For two.
two.
Well, that's for two.
I counted the two.
That's got the calibration,
Oh, two, there it
gas,
is. Yes. I
and a
got it.
charger.
Yeah, and
The question is, would do, because we know so much about the fact that these high level gases stick along the ground as opposed to being up in the air. David's question is a really good question. I was going to ask a similar question. Can we guarantee that these things are effective, or are they effective where they're not going to cause a problem? Is this, I can understand what happens when you're doing the ones in the air. That's pretty easy to understand. But when you're doing the ones along the ground, it becomes a whole different element. So are they safe? I guess that's the word. Are they safe?
These are recommended by Senate Energy Transfer.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I'm not sure that I want to get with their recommendations.
I don't want to beat them up about everything. But these items here have
But I got a little skepticism there.
But here's the thing, we need to have something in the hands of our
I agree with
township
you.
and
I'm
our
just
top
asking a
fire
question.
chief, yeah.
I'm just asking a question. I don't want to
And
make
these
sure
are
that,
actually all the units that are already on our fire trucks.
no, they're probably air type stuff. I'm talking about the ones that are on
Four
the ground.
gas meters, or they measure all gases, the 4 gas meters.
That's what's on the
And I would,
truck.
I would offer that we probably have more natural gas leaks from the gas company.
Right.
Than,
We will.
yeah,
And then we already have those meters in emergency services.
well, we're asking for meters to have in our public works guys in there,
The same thing.
Okay, yeah.
just because they're out there.
Yeah.
And they are, there's a number of them are negotiated, the other ones are fire, and other fire companies, but they're out there so that they have that same radio, so if they hear something, they have, they would be able to hear you. So the question, would you will apply for it?
Is this, can we ask for more, a grant, are 4 better than 2 if we distribute amongst our, I mean, look, it's a grant.
I love the way you think.
You know?
Well, we could potentially look at maybe applying for additional grant monies for other things moving forward as well.
I don't think,
The only grant money that I'm interested in talking about is safety equipment.
Right, well, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
they have,
I'm in favor
we get
of more,
PPEs and
but I'd like to
everything.
answer the question is from the provider, the vendor, you know, how close, if you have a rupture and no ignition, how close do you need to get to a steam before you get a reading? And so you know what it is.
Really good question.
And
Good question.
do we need a survey drag to also, so if we're gonna get the equipment, let's go. You know,
The right equipment,
does it come with one of those or?
Right.
it's certainly interesting.
Let me ask further then, should this be worked by Rick or should this be worked through the pipeline? That's finding out what we sent you.
You guys discussed it?
Yeah, we talked to, Rick can talk to the vendor around.
he can talk to them more easily, quickly.
One more.
So you want to table it till?
I think you know.
I'd like to table it to get an answer to
Okay,
the
no
question.
problem.
Is it an
What I don't want to
open
do, I don't want to send public works people into a plume with a piece of equipment. They're intrinsically safe. I did do research on that. So they're rated intrinsically safe. But I don't want to send our public works into a situation of catastrophe where they might, you know, provide an ignition source someplace else and succumb to the gases
If it's during,
if they had to be close to the plume.
if it's during working hours, and there is a call for the odds are that the fire truck, first fire truck will be on scene will be staffed by East Coast Public Works people. I mean, their role is firefighters, the fire.
If everybody's wondering what we're talking about, among other things, we have a number of our public works guys are trained firefighters, particularly from west, Whiteland. So we thought, or they suggested, somebody suggested, that maybe they should take a fire truck with them in the morning, because they would be the first ones that would, because of the shortage of volunteer fire company guys, they would be the first ones that banded at a problem. Well, this has happened, and where they have been the first, in many cases that have banded at the source, automobile accidents, fires, whatever. So what we're talking about is equipment for them, as opposed to equipment for somebody else. So it makes a big difference. And believe it or not, a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable now that they know that these guys are there. In the beginning, everybody thought that there was a problem in the neighborhood. Otherwise, why would the fire company be there? So we're doing something that most of the communities are not doing, although they've asked us for information about, how successful we are. We're very successful in terms of doing that. So it's worked out nicely, and I think that if we can, we should get these guys the right equipment, because we don't want them to get hurt by not knowing something. And I think that's what Dave's really saying. So if we do that, we do safe. Okay.
Good.
Okay, Mike, we took it, but that's fine. The triaxle dump truck now.
We went out, solicited bids again for for triaxle dump trucks again, and patent transport at $100 an hour. One of the challenges today is when you're paving roads, and we do it cooperatively, is you have money tied up in the equipment and the labor associated with the paver. So you want to have as many trucks as possible to get the blacktop to you, so you get it down and get it done. Because having 5 people stand around waiting for the blacktop plan, and so anyway, so we went out for bid, and Patton came in at $100 an hour, and Mark, we would recommend that we accept the bid.
I'm glad to see it. More than likely, they've thought about the fact as to whether or not they need this or not. And I assume that we would not get enough use out of it to justify the purchase.
We're not buying the truck.
No,
I understand that.
No, we're not, no.
I'm saying that, I'm giving you credit for doing it this way, but I'm also just asking you, there's no reason for whatsoever for us to have trash and truck and cultivated trucks.
At least not, right now, we're just looking for,
I have no problem with that. We're operating the truck.
no.
oh, it's with an operator.
Comes with an operator.
Oh,
That's even better yet, that's even better.
how many hours do you anticipate using? Do you have any idea?
Well, it depends if they pave, it's gonna be 10 hours a day, so they may pay for a week, maybe 2 weeks over the course of the year. So maybe 80 hours, 90 hours over the course of the year. Yeah.
Well,
And if it rains, he doesn't get paid. He doesn't show up. So.
When some summertime,
I'll make a motion.
paving roads, you're gonna see them, they can really pay for it in a heck of a hurry.
good.
Unlike a lot of municipalities just don't have the resources to do it, and there's real savings inherent in it. So I make a motion to accept the bid result for triaxle dump rental from Ethan Patton Transport for Public Works for this year's paving season.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments from anyone? Any audience? All those in favor of the motion? Thank you very much. What are we doing?
Anything else, before we hit
No, you can't leave, Mike.
I'm already late for leaving, so I might as well stick around.
We might as well go through the rest of the stuff and then get their ABCs to see what goals they had this past year, what goals they want to have for next year. And we really need to get concrete stuff from our goals in the comprehensive plan into some of these ABCs. We're going to be talking about that. It's going to be very boring. But I will try to get through everything else but that, and then we'll go back to that. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay.
It's gonna take a while, but it's not gonna be boring.
So the bad news is we applied for a tree grant from the PICO, and we didn't get it. And more interesting for the pipeline folks, PIMSA is essentially soliciting, taking public comments until April 6th.
Yes.
On some proposed
We got a
rule.
recommendation from the.
Well, this will be on our agenda for next week.
Okay, good.
So, but I would hopefully we will have to come back with some comments that we can submit to PIMSA. And then we'll see how that process works.
Okay, we're going to skip the liaison reports. That gets us back to any other matter. David, I know you got at least one in here. Any other matter?
Thank you, Marty. Earlier this evening, we interviewed a candidate to fill an open position on the Sustainability Advisory Committee, Brian Hutchinson. And I'd like to make a motion that we approve and appoint Brian to this Sustainability Committee, Advisory Committee.
I will second that motion.
Any comments up here? We do this as a matter of practice, but we have to approve the appointment out here. We can't do it back when we do the interview. This fellow has a lot of experience David's aware of him, whether it's good or bad, firsthand, so.
He's
We
good,
have a lot
he's
of
good.
information about this fellow. So, anybody have any comments out there in the audience? All those in favor of the motion? Aye. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any other matter? Ricky, you can? No. Anybody else? Okay, that's it. You're welcome to stay, but we're gonna bounce into this objectives. And Rick, you're gonna lead the parade, because you did a wonderful job doing this information. I'll let you yell a highlighter.
So in your packet, there is a list, and I guess we'll start at the front. So objective, and this was ongoing objective. Objective 5.2 was continuing to provide housing, some housing opportunities. And we did talk about the T&D, which is commercial units over residential over commercial, and that. That also dovetails with 5.3, which is infill. And the planning, if you recall, if you go back and look at your minutes from the planning commission, they had a couple goals that sort of like dovetail with that for next year. And you look at the annual planning session goals.
There's been, Ricky, in fairness, in fact, we heard this last night, there's a lot of concern being raised by some about this, the apartments above a commercial building on the first floor. There was a question asked last night about if an apartment goes in, what good does it does us? Well, I didn't answer the question at the time, but I thought about it, and the answer really is, if you enable people to have apartments above a commercial building, you can encourage that person to do something with that building where they might otherwise not be able to do it because they get increased revenue. So, and that's the traditional way of doing things in a town center, is to have stuff like the second, third, fourth floor with apartments. So I think the answer is, it's as an individual, at the time an apartment goes in, it doesn't make any difference to the individual or to the township at large. But what it does do is enable people to get extra revenue to maybe do something they otherwise couldn't do. Or it just is the way things are done in this type of an environment. And we suspect that, we don't know, but we suspect over a period of time, why I think the maximum number is 80, it will not hit that number anytime, certainly in the near future, but even maybe in the far future. It's just not every unit that could be possibly done isn't going to happen. So that's my take on it. I think it's still going to remain in there. If it comes out at some point, that's fine, but as far as an objective, it's going to stay as an objective. It doesn't mean there's a decision being made. I just want to be clear about that.
We have 3 locations in the township where we have a situation. One is an apartment complex. We have an old house. First floor of the house, the first floor of the house is a rental office for the apartment complex. And because it was an old house and we kept it, they put 2 units above the second and third floor. Same situation, it's in the Metropolitan Apartments on Route 3. Same situation, the Sheep Wheat Building, when they came in and rehab that, there is a business office on the first floor, maybe 2 apartments. I think there's at least 2 on the second and third floor, maybe 3, I'm not 100% sure, it's been a while. And again, that was an old building where that they retrofitted it and they ended up putting it up there. And the third place is on where the cleaners is on Route 3. Been there forever today. And I don't think the apartments are actually over the units, but they're in the same building. They are side by, there's an apartment or 2 apartments side by side to the dry cleaners. And that place has been there since sometime in the 60s. But personally, I'm not aware of anybody that's putting these type of dwelling units over commercial buildings. And anything that I've seen, now, if you go to Malvern, they did that job that they did down on King Street,
East Flats.
did the flats, but that's the only one that I have. And obviously Westchester has because they build up over time, but that's the only new place I've ever heard of that.
East Flats, I think, are 4 stories as well. My daughter lives there presently.
We're above,
I think you're right, 4 above,
we're above first.
because they're on the 4th floor.
We're not talking about that. So I'll be talking a lot going forward about the concept of value per acre. And I've already done a little study with the help of John on traditional residential, the way we have our set up. And I did a study of my own neighborhood. So I measured all the length of all the roads, and I allocated expenses for public works and pond work. And then I looked at the earned income tax and real estate tax revenue from the area. And calculation of 1 house per acre with all of the infrastructure and not a whole lot of open space. The township loses $306 per house every year. So the value per acre of a traditional 1 house per 1 acre with all the infrastructure that we have to build and maintain is inefficient. So if you look at the Paoli Pike and you look at the TND proposal, the value per acre goes up quite significantly because we already have the infrastructure built there. The trail will be there. And if you allow commercial with residential above, you have a little more density, and the value per acre actually is accretive to the township. So that's going to be my thinking on TND 1 and 2.
That's a lot of work.
Much more than I thought you were. You know what?
Yes.
Enough said for now.
That's, I think David's been, is that the thing you're looking at from the?
Yeah.
Out there? That's a pretty interesting way of looking at things. And I think it's a way that we probably need to look at many of the things that are in here in terms of what their value is. And because I never thought of it, to tell you the truth, I'm perfectly honest. I know Mike's enamored by this, and I know you are too. So I think this is, the problem with, and I ask you this question, David, if you have, the idea is, if you put the apartments in, but suppose they're not there, suppose, okay, if they're filled, it has X value. But if it doesn't get filled, what's its value?
Right. Yeah, that's, I mean, then you let the market take care of that, right?
Well, no, you still get the real estate taxes.
Well,
Yeah.
but you don't get the whole.
No,
You still get a little.
Whether they're occupied or
Yeah,
not.
yeah, but the thing is, when he starts putting all those other factors in there, the
Well,
value for it might be negative.
No, but
We're
Yeah.
talking,
David factors where a single family house is correct, will not pay enough tax to support everything.
That's correct.
That's why we have commercial.
Correct.
And that's why 60% of our housing stock, we don't plow the streets in front.
That's right.
We don't maintain the streets.
And we're lucky.
Yes, so.
And
that's
right
what
now-
I'm asking David, if you have it fully occupied, it's one thing. But if it's just there as either nothing or
we're
something.
talking to the owner, we're talking about.
But if it's fully occupied, the only additional revenue we would get would be the 1/2 of 1% of your income.
Your income, yeah.
That's all we get.
What do you mean? Okay.
Right, yeah.
My words were, if you compare the one to the other, if I fill it up, if I build it, let's assume it's like vacant, or let's say it's one of the 2 houses, the house goes away. And somebody wants to put a commercial thing in, and they put 3 stories, they put apartments up in 3 stories. As opposed to the person who just does one story. The value can't be the same. You can't, it's hard for me to believe that you can say, well, the value is X, when if somebody comes along and doesn't do the 3 apartments, for example, well, the value's gonna be something else.
We only care about revenue coming to us, so if the apartment's filled, we get the earned income tax.
Well, that's right.
But we get the real estate whether it's filled or not,
Right.
and the value of the
Yeah, but
property.
you're gonna get a hell of a lot more if they're filled.
Oh, sure, but well, we're getting the earned income.
The point
tax.
being is that if they don't, now, My argument is, if you don't fill, if they're not filled up, I can understand why your value's high if they're filled. But if it's just a single building, it's not the same.
But you're thinking of the value of the owner, I'm thinking of the value to the township. Revenue versus expenses. I mean, we put roads right now as an asset on our balance sheet. Roads aren't an asset. Roads are
Well, liability.
It costs us money to
They cost more money than they are.
and plow them and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, when we were looking at the Lewis property and using, you know, the density calculation and saying, well, we're gonna put duplex and triplex up on the upper part of the property and let the rest in open space, that value per acre goes up because you're building less roadways, you're building less sewage and all that kind of stuff. So we have to, you know, from an economic standpoint, so that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it.
I think it's a great analysis, but I'd be a little bit careful with respect to the Lewis property is easy. You either had it or you didn't. But down here with this, you may have it, you may not have it. You know what I mean? Or
Well,
have
that's
it
the
on
thing,
part.
the whole corridor here, if the land uses exists, no matter how it's zoned, I don't know how much incentive it's gonna be, ultimately in the zoning. And so, and as we've heard from Mark Gordon and Rick, there's not that much, what can I say, potential vibrancy in changing making it into a dramatic new look. Not, at least certainly not within 5 or 10 years. Maybe over a generation or 30 years or so, it may have a different look. That's why I'm supportive of the design standards in this current.
If you could get what David wanted in every spot.
Individuals making decisions at different times relative to the property they own and the businesses that the market may tolerate or not. And that is so, but I appreciate David's argument about, or not argument, but review of the economic aspects
If you
of it.
put poles in flags, what's the value of doing that?
There'd be an argument to not do that.
That's right.
And in fact, there'd be an argument not to have design standards, to let it evolve over time. Like villages did in the 1700s.
That's right.
Well, that's what they
And
built.
now people
And
go to them as
go there-
destinations.
They go there as destinations and they enjoy the variability of the architecture. So,
Well, what we have here has evolved over time.
yeah.
In 1965,
No, that's true.
you know, in 52, there was nothing here. We had Albrecht's came, but we had Albrecht's. And, you know, the bank didn't come till 70. Our building didn't come here till 68. There was nothing here.
You were.
I'm sorry. We had the pepper mill and we had the 2 gas stations.
He was born in the Berkeley Public.
But it's, so yeah, I you know, it's.
But again, I guess,
We gotta keep it.
I was gonna say,
Actually,
we're, you know,
I would like to make.
wait a minute, you changed seats. Weren't you assigned to
Yeah,
that
I'm
seat
trying
over
to get
there?
closer over here.
I would just like to urge, that the term value is relative. And while I appreciate all the calculations that you ran per acreage of value to the township, what you're speaking of is strictly economic value. And I think that the people and the residents here may find value in other ways, in terms of there's a lot of value in open space. There's a lot of value in no traffic. There's a lot of value in preserving the small town feel that once drew us all here. And so in attaching a value to only having a monetary figure to it is not looking at the entire picture. Because if you do that, then, you know, what value does a school have if it's not generating the same type of tax dollars that a commercial corridor has? What value does a hospital lend to a community if it's not the same tax basis as commercial property? what value does East Goshen Park have? It has its own value to the community, even though it can't be monetized. And so I think we have to be careful, because now what kept coming to mind, I have to say, was that it was sounding a lot like the argument that Sunoco makes of what a moneymaker the pipeline is, and how economically, what an economic, windfall it is for the community in terms of jobs and economic prosperity, when in fact that is not the type of value that the people have attached to that pipeline.
Yeah, I would argue that's a false comparison, but,
Well, it's,
obviously from my perspective, and I take your point.
but what I'm
But-
saying
but
is that
I
it's
think-
not all about money. It's about preserving a way of life that the community is used
I
to.
take your point, and when I define value, the economic value is one factor. And later on, when we get into the whole TMD discussion, I'll talk a little bit more about the value of community and the value of having a place that's important to the community. I'll talk about what people say in surveys, what they're looking for in a community, and things they do value.
Okay, so I think then
We'll
maybe,
chat some more about that. I'm just saying that one data point is you gotta consider the highest and best use of the property and the value to the people who live here and the value to the township. So I'll chat some more about those other things in future meetings.
okay, because the way that it sounded was that the value per square acre did not have as much value as,
It's definitely a factor. It's,
right, so I would just say that maybe the tax value per square acre is different, rather than just using an overriding term, because I think it's not really relative to everything.
Good comments.
Yeah.
I think we're still on page 1 of 8 pages.
We might be suggesting.
Well, so, okay, so, so the planning commission had 3 suggested goals for the job, and some of these are ongoing, which is, we continue to look at alternative types of housing, like we did for the Lewis property and the apartments and the houses over the commercial. Business park law, in other words, they're suggesting we need to review the business park ordinances, which is the I-1, I-2, and BP, to promote business park longevity. Obviously, support the board requests, because there had been a suggestion they would work with the pipeline group on pipelines ordinance. And they had started this about 4 years ago, started going through some of the existing ordinances, because they identified some areas where there's inconsistencies. So they're doing I guess, an omnibus review. So there are 3 goals, which would somewhat dovetail with some of the housing plan stuff and some of the land use plan stuff. But going down the other comp plan objectives, so we had the open space ordinance that for Lewis property, which said, as David noted, kept the same number of units but changed the housing type, and that went away. And then they also looked at allowing apartments in the BP district, and that went away. We go to the land use, and the goal is to transform the town center into a viable, walking, visible place. So, again, we've accepted the proposal from Committa, and this is a whole TMD thing. So right now, we had the hearing scheduled for December. Hearing got canceled, but then in the meantime, we've also now started work on the trail. For goal 6.1, and Bailey Pike transforming the corridor. And it's 6.2 is very similar, where it talks about connected artery, and again, that's the trail. So we got the lighted inhibitor. They They've actually had a pre-con meeting out front here. Originally, it was proposed to do it in a little segment. Myers has suggested they would like to come in and, I use the word, accelerate the process and get it done sooner. So it's going to require a change in schedule, which has to go back before PennDOT. But assuming they get the soil erosion stuff squared away, I think it'll be they'll try and get it done sooner as opposed to later. We continue to see guidance. Again, on Route 3, unfortunately, we were not able to do anything on Route 3. We did talk about trying to do some type of opportunity zone, but Florida, Route 3, that was unsuccessful. But Route 3, essentially, as near as I can figure, all the stores over there are occupied, and they're all still in business. So even though it is somewhat of a hodgepodge. We did the planning session, that ties in with the top plan goal 6.4. And obviously 6.6, the new development. The board approved that we approved the daycare in 2019 on Wilson Drive, which is now open. I'm sure they'll do very well given their situation. The economic development, again, we talked about promoting businesses in the town center. You know, I don't know, this is sort of we had a meeting, back up. We had an informational meeting and had some people come back to the team. We had an informational meeting with Committa, it didn't go too well. We had another informational meeting with the township staff and Mark Gordon, and we walked everybody through the ordinance. And then we advertised the hearing, and we had a lot of people came up, and I don't know whether they didn't understand it, but they were up. I would tell you, I don't know if they all were opposed, but there was a lot of people who were opposed to it. So we originally tried to reschedule a hearing, but then we concluded that we're going to have this many people, we got to go to school. And obviously there's a process to get to school, it doesn't happen overnight. But I do occasionally get calls about, you know, where we at with this CND? We ain't like, we don't do anything, or?
I would say that I would like to see us table the TND altogether until such time the trail is, the segments that are starting this year, till they're completed, and the pipeline construction is done in the township. The rigs get out of here. We have some restoration of the pipeline areas that have been active, and I think we need to have some streetscaping and landscaping done of the trail so that people can at least become accustomed to that. The construction fatigue is real, and I think that people are not going to be open-minded to any new zoning changes if we pursue and push this forward. We have an option, we could still push it forward, go through informational sessions and then have a hearing on it after a little while, or we could just wait until October even, and then go from there and decide how to proceed from there. But I think people deserve the opportunity to have a little bit of peace from all of the construction before they're slammed with the thought of another change happening. We've had a lot of change in this township in the past 4 years, 3 years.
I think that you first got to make a decision on when, and then go into anything else past that. So, to me, you got to make a decision. Are you going to do something before summer, or are you going to do something after summer? Because Michelle, that takes you, the after summer takes you pretty much into what you're talking about. If you're in the if you're into before summer, then it's a whole different ballgame, because you could still do your mini meetings, so to speak, but you're going to be forced to have a vote.
Yes.
Because you can't, there's no sense having a mini meeting without a vote.
That's right.
So you got to have a vote before July. So that would determine you know, when you're gonna start having mini meetings, if you're gonna do it that way.
I
The
really,
other way is to do it back after the summer's over, and you can go that way. So there's two choices you have, and I think we gotta make the choice of the timing, and then the rest of it tends to fall in place once you get the timing down.
I'm all for the idea of waiting until the construction of the
Yeah.
pipeline and the,
You're at the end, which John, are you
Trail.
at the end too?
I beg your pardon?
Are you at the end, or are you for doing it before summer or after summer?
I believe at the end of the summer, because then the trail will be completed and open.
Were you before?
Yeah, I'm in the,
Before, Mike, were you?
I'm in the, we need to have the first one in the spring.
Well, you gotta be done in July.
And what we're talking about is a, kind of an open house, a couple of them probably in different venues maybe, that would, explain the, T&D and the rationale behind it, so that people can make, an informed decision about what they're thinking about. So I really don't see the reason to wait. I mean, nothing's gonna happen in this corridor for a long time. What we're doing is just building a framework that will, people can either use the current occupancy, leave it the way it is, or they can comply with the T&D based on certain circumstances going forward. All we're doing is doing rational zoning so that rational development can happen along the corridor in the future. No one's gonna be building high-rise apartments on Bailey Pike. It's not allowed by the ordinance. It's not gonna happen very fast. You know, I don't think Mike's made this point before. It's gonna be a long time before a vision for that pipe along there is ever completed. So I don't think that we're gonna see massive construction happening along that corridor anytime soon. So all we're doing is trying to facilitate the zoning so that rational development can happen along there, because what's there now is an eyesore. And it's not accretive to the community in any way at all. So that's, I don't know why we want to wait.
When you talk about,
well, John had a point here too.
Good, John.
when you talk about open houses, my concern is that at an open house, it may be difficult for the citizens of East Goshen to state their opinions. We need some sort of meeting where people can respond, not just have this explained to them and explained to them.
What we've done in the past, for instance, on the trail, is we had an open house here and we gave people Post-it notes and we explained what was going on, and we allowed people to, post questions and comments about different aspects. And we collected them as input into this. So there are different ways to engineer that so that there is input in the process. I totally agree with you.
Good.
What are you thinking, Mike?
Well, a number of the comments are all of them are resonating with me. I want to try and package it a little bit. I like to please everybody, and ultimately I don't care what anybody thinks, but I want to try and please everybody. Particularly Christina, who's giving me the eye there. I think there would be value in some time during let's just say the summer, let's say June, of having an open house to discuss this, including a couple of set presentations during the open house, with an opportunity for questions there that may have been posted and they can be brought up at that point in time. Have some introduction, have people wander around, talk, have interface amongst us. Have one of those sessions and make it clear that at this point in time, we're just trying to educate. We'd like to see the pipeline done. I would like to see the pipeline done and get that out of our agenda. I'd like to see the trail manifested so that we can start to see what it really looks like with people walking along it and see the impressions and the reactions of our citizens. And then decide later on in the fall whether this ordinance, it's time to bring it up or we let it settle for a while. But in tabling it, I am of the sentiment of David, that I believe that it's of value in the long term to establish an improved landscape along this corridor. I've said it before, a town center is, I have ambivalence to, I'm not sure that a town center is going to show itself unless we can bulldoze the entire thing and redo it like Disney World. It's not going to show itself for years and years and years. But certain adjustments to the zoning could be beneficial, and we see how the market responds to it. It can always be amended. And we're not allowing, and it wouldn't be after a disaster. A disaster can't happen with this ordinance as it exists right now. It's not as if a large, but in tabling it, I don't want it to be the impression that it is dead. It is, we'll educate a little bit further, engage folks, get some of the work done, some of the other infrastructure we're doing too. I'm a little anxious about some of the other infrastructure and seeing that affected. The Milltown Dam, and Hershey's Mill Dam, parks, getting them done.
Tree pond.
The ponds, there's a lot going on there, but by no means do I want to have people feel, or at least for my potential vote down the road, that I'm not still supportive of further land development regulatory aspects to this corridor, to what I believe will enhance the opportunities going forward. So bottom line is, I'm willing to put it off for a while. Let's get rid of some pipeline fatigue. Let's educate maybe in June with an open house, and hopefully folks that came out that December 17th will come out and engage in a civil manner to listen and to give good opinions that are not charged with anger and just disruptive comments. And let's see what the corridor looks like come September, October. I don't think it's actually going to be done, Rick, until the end of October. Realistically, think Myers will bump it out that quickly?
That's how they make money.
I know. Well, look what they did at Greystone. I think they did a great job at Greystone for whatever, relative to the way they operated there. So they're my thoughts.
Well, the only problem I have is I don't think we can have any kind of.
Well, I heard you say an open house without making a decision.
You can't let 2 months or more than 2 months.
You know what? You don't take your your boards, your medical school, whatever. You don't take the exam until you finished all your training and education.
This is not school.
I know it isn't, but we need to school people.
You gotta. The question is.
I'm not ready to act
There's a
on
lot
it
of
yet.
people that feel a certain way about this thing. And
Of
the
course.
first question is, are they going to change? I don't think so. Now,
I tend to think possibly not too.
I would also tell you, there's a lot to be said. We're doing streetscape and whatever hell you call those things, put the flags up, the poles and the lights and all that kind of stuff, to make people aware of the fact that you got something different. Nobody's really talking about that. You don't have to go having any big meetings about that. That's part of doing it. It's going to be places for people to congregate. You can do that right away.
True.
You can put lights up, you can put flags up, you can put all that stuff up at a modest cost, relatively speaking. And you can get the people feeling that there's something different. And then it's going to be probably a whole lot easier to get people to think about zoning.
Yeah.
Because if you talk about zoning first, everybody's eyes closed. They
Yes,
don't understand.
I get that.
And,
Absolutely.
and you've got a scheduling problem because of the summer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it makes any difference whether you do it later or sooner. I think you gotta do this other stuff first in order to get people to do something. I'm just afraid that you're not gonna be able to convince enough people to change their mind. You're gonna run this same problem of every time we have a meeting, you gotta go to the school, or you gotta go to the firehouse, depending upon what you think the crowd's gonna be. There's probably no meeting involving a T&D it's gonna be able to be hauled in this building.
Well, regrettably, and in a challenged way, to have people who are proponents or at least supportive of this idea of TND, to have them come out. I've talked to a number of people that are supportive of it, but to get them to come out and have a dialogue, I don't know that that's possible. I'm also not a proponent at this point in time of putting up flags and, whatever else until we see the corridor with the trail functioning. People will come to the trail. The banners and stuff, I'm not interested in a carnival atmosphere until we see the main infrastructure in there and people starting to walk along it and starting to make comments from it to say, we were on it. Boy, it would have been great if we could have had this or that. Somebody might say, gee, the corridor's kind of dead at night. Gee, if we had some new retail or commercial in place, wouldn't it be nice to have a little life along this corridor, and some people actually may be living in some units above it, to create a little presence, a little bit of internal security to the corridor in and of itself because there's a presence. All of that stuff, that's going to take years. And I'm not sure, just the way we've done East Goshen Park over the years, what I always appreciated was when the park was first put in, the active community standards park, there were some improvements made every year. Something different was done to the park every year, whether it was a playground, whether it was an accentuating on the ball fields or what have you. Always incremental improvements. That's kind of the way I see this corridor shaping up. And if the zoning can wait, and you know what, if we get somebody that comes in and tears down this M&T bill, whatever this bank is next door, and creates something again that is a miscue, maybe that will create some inertia to have a little bit different thinking about it. But I still, as a planner, believe that this ordinance has value, but I also get the community atmosphere, at least those that have expressed it, that they're very concerned about change and the preservation of the environment that's been created. I live in a cookie cutter development, and the value of being stationary is a value to folks. They may not care about the future environment. And I recognize we have to make decisions for the future and all of the residents, but the pace can be slowed down. I don't want to end it. I want to educate and have an opportunity. I don't necessarily agree we have to vote on anything in an education process. If we can do it over an extended period of time and get some other things completed.
The one thing that everybody has
What I
to
said.
think is this trail was to be part of the mid-county trail system. It wasn't to be an East Goshen internal trail. Now, you gotta remember that the two biggest elements of this, A and B, there hasn't been yet any money, so forth. I think they're doing some of the engineering work that they can. And that's a big problem because you're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna wanna go down to the school or down to the Y.
That's right.
And they're gonna come shooting up here, but more importantly, eventually, it's supposed to go into Westchester and get out to either Exton or Downingtown. Now, if it just went into Westchester, you could ride a bike, you could do
You
anything.
sure could if we delay it.
And so
20 years.
you have to be,
20 years.
you have to bear in mind that this is just the end of one section of the
course.
trail. So
We
the
are
question I have
what
is,
we're doing. That's right.
how much utilization of the trail is in its current form is going to be different from what it will be if you had the trail going all the way into Westchester, because along the way here, you don't have anything.
It's a stub.
The
It's
best
like
thing
these,
you're gonna do is go to Wawa.
it's like these curves we see put in developments, and because that's the ordinance, and the curves go to nowhere.
I disagree. Once we get up to Reservoir Road, we've now connected 100 acre corporate park to the trail. And you ride through the corporate parks during the day, and there's people walking around in circles, those people will now walk down to the Chinese restaurant or the Wawa or whatever. So you will get people for you.
I didn't say you wouldn't get anybody.
No,
I'm just saying that
but
it's not gonna be like it's gonna be. when-
But that's where some momentum can build to say, "And what else are you gonna do with this Carter now? We have people coming here, there's nothing to do." Then we can create a fresh conversation, say, good, now you're starting to get it. Let's go back and return to where we were here and see what we can do to enhance the what regulatory landscape to improve design as well as the market interest.
So right now we have Michelle and John are waiting, we're saying, you know, we should wait. They're put like, I had after the trail. David's before the trail. I'm not sure whether you split the baby between two of them, but you're sort of like in the middle.
Because I am a confusing person, because I am confused.
So you're like in between. So Marty, where are you at?
I can't answer the question until Mike
Good.
says, because I'm gonna have to break a tie.
Well, maybe not.
No, yes,
Mike's
break a tie or break a tie.
Mike's in the middle.
Well, Mike goes to,
So if Mike's in the middle, you could, if you went after the trail, then
it doesn't matter which one I take. The only, I'm not gonna take, I said May, he said June. No, he said, yeah, he's with.
I'm saying after October.
After summertime. Your thing is to get everything done before summertime.
Christina is one citizen out there, you're thinking after the trail is in,
Yeah, I
to
think,
take it up?
I think after the trail, after the pipeline, just like what you were just explaining.
And how about you, Eric? What do you, I mean, you attend all these meetings and you know, you've heard a lot of this, you've attended it. Do you have some thoughts on timing of this?
I'm not so sure the timing really matters because it's not gonna change right away for one, like you say. And whether you have it, don't have stuff in the summer because the people are on vacation. If you have it in the fall, people are going, well, we're going back to school, we got all this to do. Then you have it the holiday. But, well, we can't come out in a snowstorm. No matter when you have it, there's gonna be
Excuses.
There's no excuses.
excuses. So,
Well, that said, if we do it now, people are really angry and they're gonna be less likely,
They're gonna be less objective.
they're gonna be less likely to be open-minded. And if we wait just a little bit of time,
I agree with you.
we allow the construction to kind of finish up, I think people will be much more open-minded when they see what the trail is for the community and how we can now make the next steps for improvement of that trail, that corridor.
If we proceed in that direction, and I'm kind of there, I would still like to broadcast and educate, if nothing else, through our website, just the kind of conversation we're having here right now. I'll write the epistle and let you review it and put it on the website. I don't want this to disappear.
Right.
This idea of this future vision, not of a town center, but of an improved landscape. That's just suburban relevance is what I'm talking about, not creating new urbanism along this corridor. And with what we have in the east and the west sides, that's why I have so much ambivalence about a town center. But suburban relevance to our residents and educating them as to the value of improving design standards to get a better product from the market when they're ready to move on some properties.
Can I go back to ask, as part of this staged process, is to doing a poll and asking residents what they would like that corridor to look like? Just like,
A survey.
yes,
survey.
just like what.
I could be supportive of that if we spend
I mean,
a few
maybe,
$1,000s to do that, Christina. I'd be interested in that. Maybe that's a step that, with the right prelude or preface with the survey and say, please read this before you take the survey, et cetera, and see if we can get a good response, get 400 or 500 people to respond back to the surveys. and see what the take is. I don't know, David, what do you think?
Why is your credit, not asking people what they want?
Too much misinformation out there already against it. People are not gonna change their mind.
And then social media would
And
beat up against it.
you put a survey out, everyone who's negative will fill out the survey, everyone who's positive about it won't fill out the survey. And the survey says, don't do it, and then we have a crap corridor for the rest of
Why? I just don't see how asking for feedback is a negative.
Yeah. I really feel
Then
that.
going back to let people settle in and see how beautiful the trail can be and how it does bring them into an area that maybe they have never previously discovered. And allow some of the traffic to start speaking up, the traffic along the trails. You know, people will say, if only there was a whatever shop. If only there was this. And I think,
You can't do it unless somebody wants to do it. That's the problem.
and I think that people are gonna be less likely to want to do this
You're not gonna have much development
before.
along the trail in this section of the road.
One of
It's
the,
not gonna happen.
one of the
Ricky's
unfortunate
already
things,
told you about 10 times
Mhm.
that you're gonna get 4, maybe 5 at the most properties
Yeah.
that do anything, and it'll be a long time before they do it.
well, that's true.
So you're really not talking, that's why I don't understand what people are always frightened about, because it's so far out.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
if you
the
put
reason.
lights and poles and flags and that kind of stuff in, you can get someplace. But as far as the TMD is concerned, the TMD is gonna take care of itself because it really doesn't have to be done now. It can wait.
That's right.
It can wait. No, not your kind of wait, Michelle. I'm
No, no,
talking
no,
about
they
really,
could
really
wait a
wait.
little bit.
Because you gotta do something to capture people's interest.
Mhm.
And just having a trail with no place to go is really not gonna do it. That trail when it's done, is nothing more than a trail. It doesn't go anywhere.
Well,
It may take
Well,
somebody.
that's
I'll ask you,
it.
I'll ask you, just picture this, close your eyes and picture this. Someone buys the TND Bank building, and they tear it down, and they move a really nice brick building with a nice porch on it overlooking the trail.
Nice.
On the first floor, there's a coffee shop with beans inside and really nice,
There's Christina walking.
you can go there and get yourself a
Nice
cup
tea.
of tea or coffee or something. And on the second floor, you have 4,000-foot apartment buildings that help the coffee shop offset the cost of purchasing the building. And the apartments are occupied by my 35-year-old daughter with her dog, who's single and makes 6 figures, and she's paying her income tax, and she's a productive member of society.
I can't picture this.
I like it. I like it.
I can't picture.
I'm not sure what's wrong with that picture. And then at one end, you got the corporate park where people can walk down and get a coffee at the coffee shop or have a light lunch. You got rental bikes at the YMCA that can ride down the.
We're not even to the YMCA yet.
And go, well, we'll get there, and ride down to the park, and then bike rentals down to the park, and you can ride up the other way. Problem with surveys and problem with what's going on in this community right now is people don't have a vision. They're trying to protect their future instead of planning their future. And what people don't understand is if you don't have this, if you turn your back on young people, and I got letters saying, tell millennials to go live someplace else. You turn your back on young people, you turn your back on entrepreneurship, you turn your back on vibrancy in a community, and you reduce your home values because we're not buying our houses anymore. Young people are coming into the community. They don't want your 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath house on 1 acre. They want to live in a community where they can walk to a store, they can walk to a coffee shop, they can get physical exercise, they can walk their kids on a trail to school, maybe stop and meet neighbors or their accountant at a coffee shop and have a community. Make it feel like a community. We don't have that right now. That's where we need to go.
That is not where we need to go. That is Exton. That is not East Goshen. That is Exton with all of its traffic and traffic lights and Route 100. And shopping mall. That is not East Goshen.
We're
Well, families are moving into those houses, but
One-
my daughter doesn't. want your house.
No, those people want
Part of the construction fatigue though has been a transfer of that look, as Christina was just saying, in Exton here, and people were saying, we don't want that here. Well, that's not gonna happen.
That's not what we're talking about.
Kevin
No,
is
but
not
that's
ever
what you
gonna
were
be-
just saying, is that that's, you just said, that's where the direction is, that's where we need to go. And those exact same apartments that you're talking about, that's what's being built at Main Street in Exton.
No, it's not. That's
Not
not what we're
Christina,
talking
but
about.
not what's in
You're
this,
absolutely
not what's
wrong.
in this current
That's
ordinance.
absolutely not
Christina.
correct.
Not in the current ordinance, it's just, all it is retail with the ability to put a couple apartments above it, but it's not creating an apartment complex with these huge blocks like Hankin wanted to put in the far west part of the Paoli Pike. That's not the vision that I saw for East Goshen either. But the TND is creating it's a different sensibility than what has been blocked and volume into that town center in Exton. I wouldn't want to be around there either. That's not my vision. Their new urbanism there is not what I want to see in East Goshen. But I do want to see, I don't want to let the trail, and particularly folks that are not, that are pundits of the trail, allow the trail to die because there's been no interest created in this corridor, which is a draw point for the trail, and say, yeah, I knew that trail was a waste of time. Nobody uses it. Well, because nothing happened in this zone that could be improved to create interest and attention and a little bit of destination between 352 and Boot Road. So it can be a vicious cycle between the two of them.
But those same people that you're competing for, you just said, who's living in that apartment above this coffee shop? Your daughter who's making 6 figures with her dog. Okay, that demographic that wants to walk to the grocery store and walk to the coffee shop and doesn't want to maintain a yard and everything, that demographic is being targeted by the same developers who are building the apartments on Main Street in Exton and in right across from Whole Foods there. And those are $2,000 apartments. And there they have everything that they want. They have access to Route 100, they have the grocery store right across the street, they have Barnes and Noble and everything like that. And so what is to say that for that $2,000+ a month that they're gonna pay, why would they pay $2,000 when they could be in the center of Exton or in downtown Philly or in East Goshen Township?
So you're right, that demographic is moving back into cities.
That's right. That's where they're going.
And neighborhoods, they want a neighborhood, but Christina, you know,
But we are
there have
never
been a
gonna,
lot of surveys done that what young people want is open space. They don't get that in the city and they're not gonna get that out in Exton. They want parks. We have that in spades here. And they want a community center. They want a feeling of community. That's what, we've got the first two.
but
What
the
we're
town
talking about
center
is that-
part of it,
So I'm not willing to abdicate that to other areas. I want to draw those people into our area too.
right, but to compete.
And we have more to offer because we
But
got
to
open
compete
space.
with
we got
that, you're
parks.
competing with a Phoenixville, you're competing with a Malvern, you're competing with an Exton.
That's right.
That's the town center.
And let them market. All we're talking about doing is making changes to the ordinance so that if the market wants to come in and do this, if it makes sense for them, they can do it. If they don't
On
want
our
to do it,
terms,
do it.
on our
On our
terms.
terms, if they don't want to do it, fine, then people will move in. I think that's
We
fine.
don't want a
But-
40-unit apartment complex in this space, in this corridor. But I'd like to see some interesting retail there that's got a couple apartments above it. That's a completely different sentiment. And you're right, it may not be the same folks that are moving into Keva or that are living in the East Flats in Malvern. But it would create a bit more of life, community life in this very small corridor that is not going to change the dynamics of the township or the broader character of the community or create a nuisance that is, spreading well beyond the immediate corridor. That's the thing I just don't see.
I think
Let
that's a
alone in the
fine
short
line.
term.
I don't think
Let
people
me
would
Done,
have,
but
we said that we wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Didn't we? We said that we wouldn't come out here and discuss the TV. That's what we said in
well,
the meeting. Now we're doing it and it's 20 to 10.
So, but
We have to come up with a, with.
So,
we have to
so,
come up
yeah,
with something.
so the question is, do we, good, let's do what David, Mike said, or as David suggested, you wanna have open houses on such and such a date,
Gotta do something.
you do it, but Eric's right. If you did it now,
let's do one open house sometime in the next 3-4 months, see what kind of response we get. Maybe that'll give us some input as to whether we can have some consensus going forward or not. But why don't we just at least do that? I don't know. John, or Michelle,
I'm still gonna beat the construction fatigue drum, and I think that you're gonna find more people are gonna be disagreeable. And I think that it's better to wait, just a little bit of time. It's not like I'm saying, let's put this off for the next 3 years. Just simply putting this off until we have the construction on the trail finished, we get the pipeline people out here, they say they're gonna be out here in 250 days or so. Let some of that construction, those construction areas start to be restored, and allow people the opportunity to not have construction happening for a little bit, because there is a perception that this could be an immediate kind of thing, and some people don't have the ability to visualize. And it's true, people don't have the ability to visualize. And we're talking about narrowing the lanes along Paley Pike to accommodate the trail. People have to become accustomed to that as well. So I'm gonna just beat that up.
You gotta, after trail, before trail.
let's let the trail get in. That's a stupid trail. But I still want something,
I'm for neither.
I want something on the website.
I wanna see the lights, I wanna see
After
everything.
the trail.
There is no reason to worry about as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason whatsoever to worry about the T&D thing now. There's nobody that's gonna do it right now. It's not gonna be done for a while. You put the stuff in, it makes people realize there's something different going on here. You let this thing completely settle down, and then you go ahead and do it. But there is no reason whatsoever to do the T&D thing now, because it's not gonna make a goddamn bit of difference.
I would
But
like.
holes and flags and that kind of stuff.
Okay,
makes all the
I
difference
still
in the
would
world.
like a good page on the website, and I'll start to draft it about where about this. And then I'll let you guys look at, I like something published because I don't want this to just go up in paper.
It's not gonna go in favor. It's just a question of what you're gonna put in first.
You can't make current ordinance, but in 2 months, or 3 months, there'll be another noise ordinance, not noise, there'll be another newsletter. So the rapid is the opportunity.
We'll double it up, all right, we'll take it back.
Be an article that
At least one full page.
what you're trying to
Maybe you and I can take a shot at a draft, get it started, let Michelle, John, Marty, or take a look at it, and then we see if that makes its way into the website and okay.
I was gonna say the website first and then the newsletter.
Well,
Need some people read the newsletter.
we know people read the newsletter.
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so then my understanding is there's gonna be a draft of
Something.
an explanation, and then this is gonna be tabled. Do we need to make a motion to table this?
Well, I think,
Until-
what I guess the minutes reflected during the conversation was a consensus of the board that we would, we would put an article in the newsletter, information on the website about the T&D, but basically, there wasn't any consideration of it until, in the fall.
A later date, yeah.
The T&D, the shouldn't, at least according to the vote, if you will, the T&D is not until at least November.
Oh,
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, but you put that, I don't have any idea what you put in the newspaper.
If you're waiting till the trail's done, the trail's gonna, and landscape and everything, it's a 2021, we're done. It's not a 2020 issue.
Well, you could be right there, isn't there?
There's no way wrong here, because nobody knows.
Engineering and all the stuff that's going to have to be done.
You can do some D&D anything, but nothing's gonna happen.
Big stuff.
So that's fine, you can put it in, but what's gonna get everybody going is seeing something different. But you have to have a facility that's gonna do something. That tour back is not gonna do it anything.
David, I think this is better for your point of view. I think that if we had meetings with the public next month or the month after, with the mood that we saw recently, I don't think they cooled down. I think you run into a buzzsaw.
I'm very aware of the East Goshen Preservation, very aware of that group and the recruiters. So I know exactly what we're talking about.
You know more than I do because I've tried to keep out of it, but I think you run into a buzzsaw if you do it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right.
Where are we for the rest of the
I'm
night?
done.
We're all pretty tired. Rick, I'm not sure we're gonna get through the rest of this. I don't have the energy to go through this tonight.
Well, I'm gonna turn the YouTube off.
What, I'll endeavor to go through the ABC goals and come back with a recommendation on. In other words, typically if we were saying, we like all your goals you do, congratulations, but we would like you to pay specific attention to this one for the dovetail. So let me get something,
I appreciate you.
I think that's.
And I'll write something up, I'll circulate to everybody about, so we can correct, but I think the walkway was, there was a consensus of the board, they would do an informational article for the newsletter on TND, post it on the website, but then the further consideration won't take place after the trail. Like the trail.
What is the, I appreciate you taking the time, but what is gonna be accomplished by that?
Well, it's like an educational piece.
People are wondering what we're gonna be doing. There are people that were asking, say, when's the next meeting? When's something gonna occur? And I think we need to try, there's a gap, there's an information vacuum right here. Where we left it December 17th representing, we might be meeting in February, and I think that we need to give an update on that to inform folks.
And have a dovetail, because the next newsletter is a summer newsletter, which goes out June 1st. So if you put something out in the June newsletter, and it was on the webpage, realistically,
Put a pretty good light.
in other words, anything that you did after Labor Day would be
Forgotten.
No, it wouldn't be forgotten, but it would be a segue into something after Labor Day, which is when the trail.
You're talking about after the trail's finished. And
Well,
you're not, that's what you're talking about, and Mike's talking about.
Well,
You're talking about
Wait,
the end of the
we're
year.
No, we're talking about this section of trail. We believe that this section of trail could be done sometime this fall.
That's not what they're
Supposed
talking
to
about
be.
on the other end.
I think that's, I think that's.
Supposed to be, yeah. Well, there'd be the 352 East of Lime Road and, and three, and.
Yeah,
I've got $5 that says it's done by Labor Day.
It's possible.
I would not bet against that. I would not bet against Alan Mars.
Both of them. No, not the whole trail, but those two.
No, we're
Yeah.
talking Reservoir Road to Line Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next, well, it might be $10.
I would bet against Alan Mars.
I wouldn't either. I'll show
Why?
you it's gonna happen.
Did you public comment, because remember you said you were going to get a meeting. Well, there was nobody here. Well,
Christine's
Eric,
here.
Eric, I'm sure.
We're not allowed to have any more public comment.
Eric has something to say.
If you got public comment, come on up and do it.
It's all right,
Eric
I'm gonna
doesn't
go,
have
I
any,
gotta go
guarantee
home.
you that.
I'll be at work at 6
I
o'clock
moved that we
tomorrow.
adjourn.
Yes.
In favor?
We gotta sign some checks and stuff, though.
Yeah, I figured we had to sign something.
Mike,
Christina, Michelle.
did you by chance send me 2 emails during this meeting?
Yes.
Perfect.
Not
That's fine, no